How y'all doing? I'm over here dancing to the nice Saturday that it is, right? I didn't mean to leave off so far and so few. And I'm saying that to say, like, I had a really good sleep to, get back up and get these lemons cut up and things. Like I said, I got a different, I'm approaching it in a different way. You know what I mean? Knowing what I know. That's what learning is, right? Knowing what I know now. I uh I ended up having I'm laughing because I'm doing so part of my spring cleaning, right? Part of that was also getting rid of old dishes, right? Or dishes that I don't need, or dishes that don't even hold on to that dish no more. You know what I mean? Like it was it's not Tupperware. That's the other thing too, right? It's a Ziploc, right? It's not Tupperware because you don't throw away Tupperware. Give my Tupperware back, right? And I'm saying that to say I don't own any Tupperware yet because I'm sure someone's gonna call me and be like, I got the perfect person for you to call, right? But between I don't have any of that kind of stuff, but the stuff that I know is at like Ziploc level, right? Like let's make some good food and go out, have a picnic, and then dispose of that, right? Like let it be gone, let it be, let it stay there, let it stay at the park, all his little friends, let it stay there. And I'm saying that to say like get dishes, but then I still have dishes that I ended up getting. So because I'll go to depending on what the dish is, depending on what it is, especially for like metal and glass dishes and things like that, I'll actually go off to go to Goodwill or secondhand stores and pick it up and be like, look, that's what it is. Like I'd rather pay $2 for like a dish like this, right? That it's not going to be something that is extensive. It's something for like a lab, right? And I don't need measurements or anything like that. The only thing that didn't come with it, but I know I can go find it, right? I can go find the lid. The lid's not hard to find for that particular dish. It's standard. You know what I mean? That's why standards are nice. But anyway, um, I'm going through. There we go. I'm going through and like I said, getting a better understanding of what it looks like, doesn't look like today. We're going to be doing the zesting, but before we do that, I want to let this dry out because this is where the zest is going to land. The other thing I got to end up getting that I realized that I didn't, like I did, you didn't think of that, and you don't think about it until later, right? You know what? Honestly, I bet you my standing scale gets down to the tenth. No, that's still with that tenth of a pound. I don't think I'm working that greatly yet. Like this box of lemons here, right? Like this box of lemons here can definitely take on a grand scale of a pound, right? But as far as like hand ingredient, no, you actually kind of need like an actual scale for that. Long story short, I did once upon a time I did have a triple beam balance scale. Another story for another day of wow. The life you live is the life you have to speak on, stand on. You know, but I do miss that. I can't remember where I got it. I feel like I found it either at a second, another secondhand store, or I'm trying to think where did I feel like the scale is mine. I want it. It was probably at a yard sale or something too. Now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, but it's just one of those. It's one of those things that just makes me so irate. Irate with the idea of where this piece of furniture landed in the scene of one's life, right? As far as like making sets, like the sets you see when I do this recounting. But anyway, before we start going down that rabbit hole of nostalgia, right? That's not restoring anything but a flash of whoa. That's where we were, right? Like, oh, that's where we were. I remember now. I got some other list of stuff to do. That's why I'm trying to get this done now, so that when by the time we get done with our inside chores, right, we can go outside and have fun or do errands, right? Like when they're inside, they're chores. When they're outside, they're errands. And right now we're doing chores. Soon we will be doing errands. And then after all that is said and done, right? After all work and no play, I refuse to be a dull boy. I am not going to be a dull boy in this regard. Today is Saturday. I think I'm going to go out and have a good old Fourth of May because the Force is there with us. But the Force here today, though, the Force that actually got me to really think that okay, we gotta get like I said when it comes down to having the dishes that we need or having the or having the dishes or having a variety of dishes. I ended up getting rid of a lot of dishes, but I'm starting to realize that the dishes that I do have because they're standard, right? I like this bowl. I like this bowl for this particular. Yeah, I'm about to break this bowl. You just be like, up, end of show. Like up, the glass is on the ground, like that's it, right? But this actually has a lip, right? And this is one of the this company or this brand has actually started to make more way onto the interwebs, and I'm saying that as far as like in being commonplace. Joseph, right? I saw one video that was popular out there with their potato mashing or their potato smashing thing. So I was like, oh, then they're like, oh yeah, it's a Joseph something something. I'm like, oh, that sounds familiar. Come to look at this, this is a fine, very extra fine grater versus I'm returning the micro planer because they're not really the same, right? After I looked at the grate, right? After I looked at the quality of the grate and then kind of like the results of what was coming out, didn't really make a difference and didn't make a difference in how I was handling it. And like I said, this one has bigger surface area, but that little lip likes to sit and it actually fits that bowl. So probably could have one more inch before it makes anything different, but that's why I like this. But before we start doing that, because we've been there, done that, and got that T-shirt right, as far as even understanding what we like and don't like about it. The one thing, so it didn't come about. This is actually a good dish. Give me a second. That's the other thing. Like I said, I got rid of all the different, or if it's a piece of plastic, it's basically I'm gonna hand me down to the plants, right? If I bother to edit, because I think this is gonna be my first clip edit. We'll see. Probably not. Like I said, honestly, editing is what takes not necessarily the fun out of doing this, but it's what takes it puts it into a different realm, right? Because you won't feel like you're repeating yourself. But I probably will edit it again. And if this gets cut out, it gets cut out. If not, well, welcome to the bonus features. Anywho, before I get far off and distracted into La La Land, I ended up having a tool, right? So part of the process of getting the flavor that I want, right? The flavor that we want out of these lemons is from the zestings. Now that step that I just showed you, right? As far as getting the grate down, right? Getting great at it and getting some zestings. And so let me give you an example of what that looks like then. So we're all on the same doggone page, because the moment we're not on the same page is the moment we're not in the same book, and when we're not in the same book, we're not thinking the same things, and if we're not thinking the same things, I can guarantee you we're not feeling the same things. If we're not feeling the same things, we're not going to act the same way. If we don't act the same way, that means that we are, in opposition. And sometimes that's great. Other times, not so much. In this case, not at all. I want you to be in understanding with me of what we got going on here. It's just me talking about me, in me, as me, to you, about us. That's it. Give me a second to think how I'm going to play this out. Because, again, so this grade, I didn't even bother to open. Hold on, give me a second because that's the one thing I do look at when I'm looking at materials and tools. If you want to get on my, if there's anything that irks me, right? And I do say this in such a serious way because it is so serious in one's head to think, like cheap tools. Now, I'm not saying that all your tools got to be Snap-on. That's ridiculous, right? That's ridiculous and elitist in second form, right? That's, come on. But what I'm talking about when it comes to the right tool for the job, right? Like this right here, is definitely, like I said, a home lab or a home kitchen material, right? But when you start looking at it as far as what it looks like, cleaned and not cleaned, or someone like even looking at it from even my perspective, being like, oh, that's not clean, right? And then how to clean this thing. I know we went off on a tangent. Give me a second, okay? It's all good. Because this is a one directional. Yeah, it's one directional or unidirectional. So I gotta dry it a certain way. So that's the other thing too. I started doing. Like I said, I was writing. My two invisible employees right now are Day Day and Pookie. Okay, we will get into these characters, Day Day and Pookie, but for now, I'm writing these instructions for Day Day, right? And Day Day is a great worker. Sometimes they're here, sometimes they're not. It's a day to day thing. So we got to write these instructions for day day because day day can pick up in a day, but day day be gone tomorrow, and then you'll wonder yesterday, where's day day? That kind of employee, right? And I'm saying that to, like just give you a little insight as to who we're trying to train up, right? For this particular endeavor, because that's just the nature, right? That's the nature of what we got going on here. So this has been in the fridge for 2 days, and I really don't want the shelf life. I am messing with shelf life, or I'm messing with where I'm examining freshness, right? I'm doing some freshness evaluation because where's my cup? I think I designated these as my drinking cup. They work and they fit the mini of ice cubes, which all of our trays are in production right now, which is good. Like I said, a lot of this stuff is just a matter of prep work, but what's the prep work to prep work, and the prep work to prep work is cleaning. So there's always a line somewhere. Hmm. But that's what we got going on, right? So if you remember yesterday, I had or was it the day before? See what happens when days meld. But anyway, you see how yellow that is, right? And it might be a little less yellow because that freshness is leaving, and that freshness is leaving because it's being stored, right? But it's still very, very, very yellow, and it gets even yellow. It even has such an intense yellow that I'll put this back, right? This is from the first batch, which reminds me about these particular events. This might be my first one if someone actually interrupts this particular broadcast, because I did forget to turn off my networks. Ain't that something? It's all good. Mm. But let me show you what the material today that we got also, right? So aside from finding, the full life cycle of a lemonade, right? Or not, excuse me, not the full life cycle of a lemonade, a full life cycle of a lemon. Um, this is white vinegar in here, so this is doesn't smell too bad. If anything, I think it's picked up what it got. But I ended up getting this from, so that I don't know what the official name is, right? I just remember playing with something very similar. And I do say playing. I'm talking about like on a uh Play-Doh, like Play-Doh, right? Back in the day. But here, let me focus on what my hands are doing and not up here. Oh, hold on. Like I said, it's the editing that makes stuff hard. So this right here is a material that I found in my grandmother's shed. My grandmother has a shed of stuff, and this has happened to be one of those things that I was able to get away with. You know what I mean? As far as it's not in use, I'm not sure what it was in use for, but what we're doing now is I did figure that it was steel or stainless steel or appliance steel. Right? It was a little bit more rusted. If you look at it right there, it's still got some rust. I let it sit in this solution of white vinegar and that half cut lemon. That's how they volunteered themselves. That half cut lemon yesterday, the one that was that yesterday? It had to be yesterday. But anyway, um, on the last of it, right? But that rust right there, I let it sit in this solution for quite a few hours. I mean, in this small bowl, like I said, trying to get rid of all and any of these things that just wouldn't help me in a fruit fight, you know? Mm-mm-mm. Let's see. Yeah, boy. That's coming off right. That's coming off right now. So the purpose of this thing, right? Like I said, I hate not knowing what it's not called, or what it is or is not called. I just know that I tried to find it um on the internet, and I know I don't know what it's called, but it does have a name. I'll get myself educated on what it is. But what I'm going to use this for, or why this is important, or why this is part of these, why this is part of this adventure or these shenanigans, is because, so what I'm going to do is, I ended up having a recipe or a technique or a what's the word I'm looking for? I wanted to, give me a second to get this at least even, right? Even. I ended up uh having that same just we don't have to talk with our hands when we have the pudding, right? So this right here goes into a strainer, right, or a straining process. And so if you see here, there's holes in this thing, right? And so this is going to not necessarily expedite the straining process, but make it consistent in what I'm trying to do. Because even for the recipe that I wrote for this thing, or the first recipe that I wrote, and I put that in very very big quotes because it didn't have measurements, right? Like a recipe has direct measurements into what something is and direct directions into what something is. When it comes to its composition, right? I just made a composition list and was like, oh, okay, well, a baseball's worth of this. A baseball's worth of this. Like, are we talking size? Are we talking weight? Are we talking density? Like, I mean, and again, that's just me getting mad at yesterday me for not being scientific. But I get the point, right? Like this sizing is fair enough, right? It's fair enough to think empirically or imperially, because then you have the empirical system and then the metric system, and then and even that right there, I had a whole self fight of how we're gonna do this, whether it be in metric or imperial, yeah, imperial system or standard. I'm trying to think, what's the opposite of metric? There's metric and then there's standard. I know in mechanics it's SAE. Is it standard American equipment? I feel like that's what SAE stands for, but we'll find out later. I'm about to put this back in the fridge though. We don't have to keep this out. We don't have to keep this out. You know what I'm talking about. When I'm talking about the Zev shavings, if you don't know what I'm talking about, rewind the video and find out what I'm talking about. You'll be okay. But this is actually scrubbing off fairly simply or fairly easily. I know let's I want it all off because I don't want any of it to play into the effect of the taste or the safety of this of this you know of this making. Even though this is shining up pretty well, I think this brush has had it with me though. I think this brush is like, look, bro, listen, we've been scrubbing for 1,000 football yards, 1,000 football yards, 1,000 football yards. Then would just mean 10 football fields, right? Football yards. Even though how long is how long is the soccer field? The soccer field the soccer field has to be longer than the football field, right? Things I have to ask myself and put into perspective. Because I do think, but that just might be the camera work, right? That might be the camera work of soccer and the difference of football. Because football is going to be very focused on, you know, this this 40 yards of wall, and I'm saying that as far as the 22 guys. This 40 yards of wall right here. We're just trying to move this border. That's all it is border moving, right? Like we're trying to move the border as close to your border as possible, and then we exchange. Who's defending or who's defending or who's offending said border. Catch the baby. And I'm saying that to say, I had to put some calm on my NFL. I put some. See, this is actually cleaning up fairly well, but I think some of this has to soak even further. And a part of me is like, I want to just. I kind of went crazy the other day. Just as a side note, we don't have to talk about NFL. On the side note, the Knights won last night. I think they did. I didn't. I did not. I did not wake up to good job Knights. I woke up to go Knights go. So I think that's good to go. Speaking about sports. But anyway, I went a little crazy on the white vinegar because I was going to not start, but I found out one thing I can do with the first realm of lemons that I did have was do a solution that gives me the power to turn into the pine saw lady, y'all. But no, it was basically cleaning solution, right? Natural cleaning solution that I have plenty of people Sir, you are now and no longer going to be in service because you're cleaning up rust. It's okay. But no, I have enough people that like natural cleaning solutions. And so just create a $5. Like a 5 gallon. You would think a 5 gallon bucket would require 5 gallons of a 5 gallon bucket, but see, I forgot buoyancy and all this other stuff, right? Or I forgot some qualities that basically means that you don't need that much white vinegar. Tragic. So, but it kind of works out because we might be soaking this thing the way that some of this stuff, because it only was able to soak. I know I'm skipping my own tongue in my words. Just work with me here. It couldn't soak, right? It couldn't do the full bath, right? Like the mark of success, being able to put your full body in the bathtub. Um, it couldn't. It's not able to be submerged, right? And I would prefer not to take my sink out of production, so I might put it in here. I just don't know how. Well, it's a hefty. If it's hefty, I could probably handle it. So what we're gonna do then is, now that we see that it is successful, right? We don't have to sit here and be a scrub no mo. We don't have to sit here and be scrubbing. Y'all did not tune in to watch a scrub. Y'all tuned in to see a cutter. You need to cut it. Okay. Yeah, so what we're gonna do, we're still gonna use what we have here, right? Like that's fine. But we're going to take this and we're gonna put it. Yeah, come on. Boom. We're gonna put it in there. Give me a second here. Get my life together. That can stay in there. You're part of the crew. You're getting clean with that. As soon as you're done, you're done. As soon as you're done, you're done. Dun 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 dun. When you're done, you're done. Punctuated. That sentence is done. There's no going back. There's no recapitalizing. You just start a new sentence. And when you start a new sentence, you start a new story. And when you start that new story, well, guess what? That means you have a brand new ending. That's what it means. But I will say, it's probably too much to say story. You're probably talking about a chapter, right? Once the chapter is done, the chapter is done. Let it be done. Let the chapter be done. That one chapter is not going to change the entire ending, unless it's the last chapter. And you don't know what's the last chapter. You don't know that. You don't know that. Because the author makes it very clear that it is none of your business what the next chapter is, or is not, or when it will end and when it will not. Things only end because they're due, not because they're done. That's it. That's it. Or that's the way writing works. Writing is never done; it's merely due. That's what makes it done, but that's not what makes it complete. Complete. So before we ramble through about reading and writing and arithmetic, let's get to this arithmetic here. Pour some vinegar. Because May is here. Pour some sugar on May. Oh my goodness gracious. I cannot believe we are in May already. So a part of me wants to submerge this entire thing because it's still peeping out here, right? A part of me is like, no, go for it. And I think that's what we're gonna do. We'll be okay. I mean, we can't drink vinegar, but we can definitely use it. Probably need to do another treatment to my drains, to be honest with you. Speaking of, or not drains, but no, yeah, the drains. There we go. Okay. So while that's soaking in its own lemonade, we'll use this tool for another day. As a matter of fact, I think I have an exact plan for this tool. So you won't see this guy for another few days, because I'm gonna let it soak. I'm gonna let the rust think about what it's done, right? To sit here and act like it knows time better than I, and it does. Rust is Rust is definitely a sneaky of a thing. Which if I'm not mistaken, I think it's just the oxidizing, right? Taking the moisture of the air, and it finally said, oh, this is where the air is nice. This is where the air is cool. So I'm gonna stay here and you know grow dirt on more dirt. It's just stunted dust. Stunted dust. That's what's stunted dust. That's what's rust. Or resting dust. That's what's rust. But I'm talking out the side of my neck in that, so we'll find out. I'm just trying to make sure that this thing right here is not leaking on the bottom, because if I come back to a spot, it'll just be a white vinegar spot, but it's still a spot that's gonna get on my nerves. Okay, so that's not too bad. We didn't use all we used a gallon of vinegar, but if we get a good tool out of it, if we get a really decent tool out of it, then I can't be too mad, too upset to think. Especially like I said, especially something that has a significance. I just gotta find out what it's called. That's it. Like I cannot stand not knowing what things are called, just because when you're trying to get things to make sense in getting them, or make sense in purchase, right? You have to. I don't know why. That's one or the other, right? But when you actually know what things are called, you can actually communicate to people. Like I said, you're in the same book, in the same line, in the same way. Like you're in the same you're in the same mind of thinking. And so you don't have to actually do this translation. I need to dry this off. You don't have to do this translation step, right? You can just speak and not have to have this disconnect of like, oh well, what are you describing, or what are you talking about? That's one thing I can say. Like I feel like two adults who don't know the same language, would not be able to communicate as fast as, say, two really non-speaking babies. Like I feel like non-speaking babies have a further communication than two grown adults with a known language of both of them, right? Whether one speaking alpha and one speaking omega, but like they still would never get as quickly get as quick as an understanding um as to non-verbal beings. I can't even say babies. I'll even say non-verbal beings. Something about speaking, right? Something about words, right? That make things make me go, hmm. How language changes the fabric of thought. How language changes the fabric of ideas, right? But we don't have to go off on intangible tangents. I usually like I said, I got my handy dandy clipboard here. Okay, if Dora can have a monkey in a backpack and a map, I can have a doggone clipboard. Tell me I can't have no doggone clipboard. Show me where I can't have a clipboard. Okay, I think we are now going to name this clipboard Cliff, because that's one thing I've been. I think we're going to name this clipboard Cliff, because that's one thing I've been doing is I've been watching, because I can't really say I've ever been a big letting this disinfectant dry. You got to give it a water down, and let it get there, because it's still. Give me a second to actually think before we get too far into talking about Cheers, because I've been watching Cheers, right? I've always seen Cheers. Cheers was always on, right? By the time that it was on Nick at Night, it was on Nick at Night, right? Now I think half the stuff that I saw during the daytime is on Nick at Night. Now I think it's finally made it, right? That 15-year, 20-year stretch of media or what have you. But anyway, if you're not familiar with Cheers, right? It is a show that is in the setting of a bar, right? A Boston bar, by a former alcoholic baseball player who, if you see this scene now, right, that's how the scene opens. Is this guy who opens a bar in Boston? And if you're familiar with neighborhood bars, or you're familiar with the nature of Cheers, the show, right, the setting of people, you're gonna have your reoccurring characters, right? So not only do you have the owner, but you have the employees, the reoccurring characters, the stories, this, that, and the other. So I've been rewatching that, but the one person who does always get my attention because he is he's a he's what's the word I'm looking for when I say a staple, but he and the other counterpart, right, Cliff and Norman, as far as when I say like this is Cliff. Cliff and Norman are they are individuals. They're characteristically individuals, but they're characteristically a pair, which makes them a character in themselves, right? Like together they are a character. So, but the guy who plays Cliff, right, John Ratzenberger, 77 years old. I know, right? I'm saying that as far as like looking at the idea of like, oh, this is the strain where we're at in the shows because they kept talking about the '80s, right? It's one thing to be a timeless show, and I think, and I asked myself, is Cheers a timeless show? And I think it is only because of the human nature of a tavern, a pub, a bar, whatever, right? It's a nature. I'm saying it's a nature in itself. It's its own jungle, forest, or environment. So I think when it comes to being timeless, I think they did a fairly decent job of being timeless, especially for these particular characters. But that guy, I feel like he could still step back into it and be fine. But I'd start going down a short rabbit hole, or while witness dry, went down a short rabbit hole of 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 him, on a slight whim. Because if you're not familiar or you haven't heard his voice, which is one reason why I like watching these older shows too, because then you start seeing all the faces now, right? Some of the faces that you see in Common, or some of the faces you see in roles of wisdom now, are the roles that we saw in Foolishness then. I had just someone the other day come back. Give me a second. Give me a second to think about what we're doing next. Yeah, it had music though too. Like I said, I don't think you can hear that. We did a mic check earlier, and I'm realizing that this mic actually does really well in keeping the music out of the video, but keeps me jamming. Oh man, that's one of those things when you wake up to a certain, when you wake up to a song. Like you didn't have to do no. I didn't have look. I still didn't. Actually, I did get a good stretch this morning, but just woke up to another song from Cheers, right? Because Cheers was playing in the background. But it finally came to an episode where it basically said, I ain't got no mind left, baby, let's dance, right? And it was the start of it, and it was almost like a wake up sound. I had to put that out there today because I said I never heard that song before. Come to find out, the original song was the Isley Brothers' "Shout," and you make me wanna shout, throw my hands, shout. Come on now. I'm trying to think. I wonder how much. I wonder how much, because I know Shout the commercial used their song for a stint, right? I wonder how much it cost them, because that's that kind of stuff where when it comes to branding and marketing and things of that nature. Like when I think about it, right? When I hear Shout, now I wonder what Shout incorporates now. Now that I'm sitting here thinking, have I heard any other music or any songs or anything lately that has Shout in a way? I guess it's just the nature of Shout Out. And like I said, it's changing, right? So for something to be timeless, I'm going back into this series, and like I said, this particular actor whose name is Cliff in the show, but in real life, Ratzenberger, he plays the voices, right? He's a voice character. If not all, I don't think he's all Pixar film. I have to look to see if he is featured in all of them. But he's Ham, like he's Ham at a Toy Story. Mm. Or he's the big rig out of I'm about to say, what's that movie about the cars? It's called Cars. I remember one day I was sitting there and I was like, who's the first one with Lou Gehrig's disease? You want to talk about a room full of people that just kind of look at you and think. They just kind of look at you. They just kind of look at you like, are you all there? Like, are you a complete square? You know, you rounding off there, triangulating a thought, because did you just hear yourself? Did you just hear yourself? Like I said, and it's just a look. Like they don't even have to say all that. They just it's that look of, did you just hear yourself? Mm. While we hear ourselves, let's see ourselves, right? Let's see ourselves at it. Oh, let's see. Man, oh man. But yeah, today is May 4th, and for a lot of nerds and geeks out there, May 4th represents May the Force be with you from Star Wars. Speaking about franchises and businesses and whatnot. These lemons are finally nice and room temperatured and squeezed. We rolled them out the other day. So, with One Direction, we're going to rezest a batch of lemons. By this time, though, I'm going to see, like I said, the freshness levels or the freshness qualities. I'm going to see what this does for the next batch because I started doing some more research as to the citron fruit, right, in general, and like I said, not just lemons, but limes, oranges, and grapefruits. How they all kind of come together to create this recipe of sorts. Yeah, no, this one right here, I don't think can. I have lost sleep on the thought of this, not necessarily this, and I don't mean lose sleep literally. I just mean that it's taken some turns, right? It's taken some turns of thought or some time to think about it. Which for a lot of people, I didn't realize this until I came across it in another discussion. One down, more to go. When I came across the discussion that some people like thinking is just not a thing they like to do at all. Like that's just not they just don't like to think. And I'm like, wait a minute. I thought thinking was pleasurable, and enjoyable. But I'm starting to realize now that thinking is enjoyable, gear grinding is not. And then gear grinding happens when things just don't connect, right? Like I said, if we're not in the same space and in the same book on the same page, same line, whatever. If we're not lining up or aligning in a way that makes it pleasurable to think, right? Because they say it's a thought that counts. Counts for what? You know what I mean? Counts for what? You know, counts for my love. I don't know. Cause I wrote that down the other day when someone was like, "Oh, it's a thought that counts," and I'm like, on what rubric did the thinking count alone? Because if that's the case, then show me where a thought counts all the time, and I'm there. You know what I mean? Like I'm there. Let's do that. But thinking is not enough, right? You gotta do some things. Um, so I thought about this process, right? I thought about this process prior to even this process, even before I got all this stuff. I thought about this process, right? Like how I'm gonna do this and what I'm gonna, never. And when I say never done it before, I've graded my share of cheese. I've graded my share of stuff. Like I've graded. It's not something that you go like I've never done that before. It's it's a matter of, like I said, doing it on a scale that you realize like, oh, there's proper ways and improper ways of doing this. Anyway, if we went back to, or if we trace back to Cheers, right? This Rotzenberger fella, he's out of Connecticut, right? And Connecticut keeps popping up on my radar, my personal radar. Um, and it's one of those things that kind of makes me go like, why Connecticut? Why? But they're one of the 50, so of course, right? Even I'm trying to think. It was Connecticut came up in discussion because someone thought that the current administration was from Connecticut, and I was like, no, they're from Delaware. So like that already gives me insight as to how in tuned they were. You know what I mean? Like as far as in tuned they were into the landscape. But it was Connecticut, North Carolina, and New York or something along the lines um, of, because we went over juvenile law this passing week in my class to realize like, oh, okay, this is how we start shaping our society to define what is and is not um kind and okay, which is kind of like where, like I said, where I've been going off on a tangent in the last, say, 2 weeks, right? A level of thinking on what is kindness versus what is politeness versus what is niceness. What are all these things in the sake of lemons? Because some of these lemons aren't so kind, but some of these lemons are really nice, right? Some of these lemons are really polite, but some of these lemons, man, they just can't make the cut. I'm gonna squeeze them anyway, right? They're all going into this tasty batch of lemonade, but doggone, I would rather want the kindest lemons I can have versus The ones that are just sour for no reason. Like, why are you sour, man? Oh, my name is Lemon, dude. Okay, good for you, but you don't have to be that sour. But if a lemon wasn't sour, is it really a lemon? That's all low hanging fruit, y'all. I'm telling you, there's nothing deep about it. If anything, it's the shallow end of the pool you can drown in. So if you must sink or swim, then by all means, sink or swim. Just don't think about it anymore. Like, just don't think about it anymore. If you keep thinking about it, you're gonna lose that train of thought. Off the rails. We went off the rails. You know what went off the rails? This doggone subject of Connecticut. So Connecticut's been popping back up. Like I said, into my realm of thought. Sight unseen, unheard. You kind of forget about areas, right? And Connecticut was one until just recently. And to think that their biggest exports out of Connecticut, come to find out there, because the one thing I remember about Connecticut, or the first time I remember hearing about Connecticut in a way that made me go like, oh yeah, that's right, they're a state. First and foremost, they were one of the first quarters where I don't know if anyone remembers or if anyone still kind of collects them, but the United States used to have all the 50 state quarters, right? And Connecticut, I think, was part of the first. Their state was a part of the first printing, right, or the first minting of those special quarters. And so I always remember them being in the first of that of Connecticut. I didn't really learn about Connecticut in a way that I was like, oh yeah, of course that's a state with people and a pride of Connecticut, right? I didn't hear none of that until way later. The first time I ever heard it in mention was about the tax, right? I had a teacher or a New Yorker teacher, um, who made effort to say, like I would never move to Connecticut. They have the highest taxes I've ever seen in my life. Yada yada yada. I come to find out today, as of today, they're the sixth largest when it comes to the amount of taxes that they have. They fall right behind California, who is right behind Maine. I had no idea because that's one thing I wanted to do. I wanted to make some really funky. I want to make some really funky. What's the word I'm looking for? Some funky things. I'm saying funky as in like recipes and things. I love blueberries. Blueberries is probably like my favorite berry. Like I was ranting on the other day about blueberries, blackberries, strawberries, boysenberries. Uh, this, that, and the other. But blueberry is that one, right? And Maine is one of the if not, I think, if not the highest producer of blueberries, the state to go to see something of blueberry nature, right? So them blueberries ain't paying them taxes, I see, because even then up from them is Vermont. First essence of Vermont that I ever remember is number one. Their state capital, Montpelier or Player is pronounced weird, or it's French based, which is always something that gets me tripped up, right? Ingenieur. Oh, when I heard that the first time, I said, "Excuse me, what did you just say to me?" Like, what did you just say to me? Like, don't talk to me like that. And I'm saying that in a good way to think like, oh, there's a finesse that the French have, but we don't have to go deep down into the French. I just know that from Vermont, I think of Ben and Jerry, the ice cream shop, right? I think they're still out there, but don't let anyone tell you you can't do it as a pothead. But let me tell you, those two potheads did it. I ended up seeing. I didn't see Ben speak, but I saw Jerry speak. I saw Jerry Greenfield speak in college, and he's a decent guy. And they had a really great story. Just to think that these two guys, went about it in a way that they felt comfortable, and that was within themselves and within their hobbies, and it made this you know ice cream empire. But above them, of course, Hawaii is no Hawaii is no not necessarily a no dub, but Hawaii is no big surprise, and New York is no big surprise. So New York, Hawaii, Vermont, Maine, California, and then here comes Connecticut, right? And so then the thing that kind of made me kind of go like, okay, well, if that's all I know Connecticut for, right? Like, then what does Connecticut do? And so I looked at their, and I know this is just me exploring Connecticut because you would think that these are like commonplace things or commonplace ideas, but I guess only in that area. I'm so far removed, as in I'm so far on the other side of the Mississippi. The reason why I love these things being just as a skirt. Hold on, there's a motorcycle in the background that I hear. But just as a squirrel, like over there. Wait, tangent. I like when they are at that room temperature and they're not so cold. Cold or a colder lemon might be better for the shaving process, but as far as being even, that's pretty even. Like I can't you can't really expect too much more zest out of that. But anyway, but greatest exports or greatest things that Connecticut is known for, which I did not know this. So this is one of those things that makes me go like, aha, stuff starts making more sense. Um, when you start realizing these locational factors, right? But aircraft, spacecraft, industrial machinery, electrical machinery, sound equipment, and TV equipment. Those are all the things that Colorado. Oh no! There you go. Ice Cube over here on on my bump. I don't know what song it is, but you already know when O'Shea get on there, you already know. Like, come on now. But yeah, and I'm reading off a prompter of sake, like I said, my clipboard here to help me out. I'm trying to think. Uh, like fight night. Now it's fight night. Migos fight night. Which reminds me, I like there's some fights in town right now. And I'm saying fights right. I'm saying fights in town right now because we have if you're not familiar, the Q Sports community gets together every year, depending on what league you're in or what league you assign. Right, APA is infamous for always being in Las Vegas. Right, APA is always the Nationals are always in Las Vegas. Um, CSI, they're international. I think their international event is always here, but they have national events or regional events all around. And then I think TAP rotates, and I think BCA also, or no, BCA is CSI. I think. See, I mean, and I'm saying this as far as like if you get anytime you start getting into communities and things like that, right? Like we know the CES show is here every year. Like it's a time, it's a time of year, Christmas in July, kind of deal for event planners or for people who are in that particular industry or live here. Lord, keep you looking at me. Mm, lordy, lordy. Mm. Now that I'm thinking about it though, I saw something with that. Hmm, I can't think of his name to save my life right now. Oh, even though it's Carnelo. Is it Carnelo Alvarez? I can't think of his name. I just know it's Cinnamon. Like as far as the Mexican boxer, I think it is Canelo. I think he was talking about someone the other day as far as being able to fight. I haven't seen a good fight in a minute though. The last good fight I remember seeing, or the last good fight I remember being in town and being like, yeah, it's fight night. The fight's in town, the fight song. Like it's here. It was him and Triple G. I think it was Canelo and Triple G 2. I remember walking through the Excalibur because I had won. Which I I'm trying to think. So with the Tropicana going down, Tropicana was I think the oldest, and I think it was one of the flagship. I think it's the last flagship Las Vegas property. If not Circus Circus, I know Circus Circus has been here because Circus Circus is going to be the oldest after that in the 70s. I think. Like I said, I got to do some fact checking on my own. I know the Excalibur and the Luxor were 93, 94 ish, if not 93. So I can say right now though that the Excalibur has a long way to go, and I'm saying that from experience. That was nearly what year was that? Was 2017. So 2017 was 3, 4, 7 years ago. So maybe they've shaped up since then. Maybe they had a revisioning or of understanding how to run a place because back then I was just like, oh no, for the price point tip point, never again. There's nothing here that even excites me about being in this hotel. You know what I mean? As far as if anything about it. Only thing I really do love about it is that Tournament of Kings. But I've seen Tournament of Kings, enough. And I've sat in the same section. Maybe if I sat in a different section, right? I always sit in Ireland, or we always get seated in Ireland for that reasoning. That's what I'm saying. Maybe if I sat in a different section, saw it from a different perspective, that might be something cool. I know them horses are tired too. They're like, man, we've been doing this show, we've been doing this dog and pony show for years, Yeah. But a horse is like a good dog. They're ready to work. You know what I mean? They're ready to work, and they do a whole bunch of horse playing. I know this much: if you've never seen horses play, the whole concept of horse play, that phrase becomes very clear very soon when you see horses actually play with one another. You're like, oh snap! Like you try to get in the middle of two horses playing, you're gonna get hurt. Which is the point of horse playing, or play that I can't interrupt without getting hurt. And people are like, no, you can't be doing that horse playing. I'm like, horse playing. Part of horse playing is this, and it's like I ain't playing. And it's like, well, that's the point. Which is funny though. But hopefully everybody get a good get a good horse ride on the trails this coming season. Because that's something in the works. Something in the works. I'm not horsing around with you. I will say this: if we're going to be horsing around, we can horse around with the verse of the day. We can get that. We can get that in, right? It comes from Micah 5:4. The Lord's Messiah will stand on shepherd his flock in the strength of the Lord, in the majesty of the name of the Lord his God, and they will live securely. For then his greatness, for then his greatness will reach to the ends of the earth, and he will be their peace. And that's come from Micah 5:4. I'm telling y'all, when it comes to being being caught up in the word, or being caught up in word to recognize yourself, have reflection of yourself. I don't know every book. I don't know every word. I don't know every verse. You know, do you know? And that's kind of a question. Like, do you know? Because if you know, then tell me. All I can tell you is what comes across. You know what I mean? And I'm saying that as far as, again, even as a self reflection. You can think about doing something for yourself. You can think about doing something. Hey, be gone. I know you buzzing. I got my back door open. Let the air circulate. Because, like you're saying, when you start going into reflection, right? When you start going into recognizing the changes that come, um, with 2 boxes of lemons, right? You start looking, you start searching, and then when you realize that you don't have to search that far, you don't have to search that hard, you don't have to search that long, it becomes a little bit more enjoyable to be like, oh, okay, well, now that I know what I know, how I know, let's act upon it. What's the point of knowing something if you don't act upon it? I never understood, and this is the thing that kind of just irks me with some folks. I never understood wanting to know things just to know things. Why do you want to know that? Just to know things? Like there's no reason to know something if you're not going to act upon it. And so when people come about how they ask questions, or what they ask, or where they ask, or who they ask, it's always a curious thing to me, which I was able to do last night for sure. It came to me in a dream, right? As far as knowing what kind of values, right, one should surround themselves with, or knowing what kind of values one appreciates, or knowing the kind of values that are necessary to continue, you know, to continue to grow in that value. I don't think anyone asks is gold gold. I don't think if anyone asks is platinum platinum, right? People just base it off of what they see, what they know, and what they understand. But we don't have to go deep, 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 deep down that rabbit hole. Like I said, I just want to share the verse of the day to give a little bit of a grounding, right? To give a little bit more context, to give a little bit more light in how you can go about it in a kind way. Other thing I did see though today, I'm sitting here, like I said, I'm reviewing my notes as I go about the scrolling nature, right? While you're over there scrolling, I'm over here grinding lemons, scrolling lemons. Same motion, same motion, different outcome, different juice, right? But I got this juice earlier today though. They retired over at Mitchell. I think it's just I want to say Milwaukee Airport, but I think what caught my attention was Mitchell because Mitchell is a special name. Uh, but Milwaukee, I can't remember the airport name, but out there they retired their first canine. Looked like a German pointer. I didn't really get deep into it. Whenever I start seeing too many feel good videos, it's not that what happens for me is if it's something that I can love, I can appreciate and understand at a deeper level, I just scroll right past it because I'll get sunk into the details, right? And why go to the details? You know what I mean? Like, don't stress the details. So the one thing I will say is it was pretty cool. They had the canine in the video. They had the canine, doing their last subject, right? And of course the subject is a plant, right? The subject is not a passenger because I could see this being very nerve wracking if I was a passenger who wasn't at least caught up on what you're doing, right? So this is definitely someone who knows the dog or knows the department. Might even be someone who volunteered or won the prize at the annual potluck because that is a thing that you can win at the potluck for the county. But they came through their last subject, and the dog was excited working, right? The dog, and by the way the dog was acting, I feel like they gave the dog their last bust, which is why I think it was, like I said, it was someone who or now I know it was someone that works there because you don't want the dog to end on a low note, right? Like, who wants to be the canine that couldn't find that last one? If a canine is what your job is, and so they found the last one, but then they showered the dog with tennis balls, which I'm sure tennis balls are that thing that let the dog know that we're working or we're not working, right? If you've never seen a dog at work, or like, let me backtrack. I love the working breed, right? The working breed of dog when it comes to dogs. The working category, if you're not familiar, there's a working category, there's a herding category, there's a toy category. Herding, working, toy. I think that's it. Hold on, no, there's another one. Sporting, even though I think sporting and hunting are probably the same. Hunting dogs, hunting, sporting, herding, or game dogs, working dogs, which I think working dogs are. Anyway, when you go to the working category, it is very imperative that you give this dog work to do. If you do not give this dog work to do, you don't give any dog, honestly, any working dog or any living thing, if you don't give it a purpose, it's going to be, it's going to go into a crisis. Okay, if you have any living thing under your custodial watch and you don't give it a purpose, it's going to go into crisis because that's just the nature of living things. But when it comes to this working group, right, this working breed, I love the working breed of dogs. I'm just not in a position right now to not have enough work for it to do. If you not give a working dog enough work to do, well, number one, you have one or two ways to go about it, right? Because I was laughing because so that same friend, right, that same friend who if you're following along about the pillows, that same friend shared with me that their great aunt had Malinois, Belgian Malinois, which are really they're like the police dogs, okay? Like, and I don't like calling them police dogs because they're not police dogs. They're a whole breed of their own, right? But that's what people familiarize themselves as, right? I'm trying to think, is there a famous one that has a name that people would know, right? And I don't think there is. Like, everyone knows McGruff, right? McGruff the crime dog, or maybe not. Maybe McGruff done been retired with Smokey, but like, he's a bloodhound. Like, that's what I'm trying to say. Like, I'm trying to think, is there a famous Malinois that there is? I don't think there is. But they were overweight. I'm saying overweight as far as like they weren't like Garfield Garfield esque, but they were out of shape, lazy Malinois, but they were adorable though, and they didn't have the nips, right? They didn't have the same nips that working ones do, because I've seen ones that don't have any work to do, And so going back to it, if you do that, if you have a working breed and you don't have any work for it to do, it becomes destructive. Like it becomes, and it's not on purpose. It's just that energy has to go somewhere, right? Same thing with the herding group. I love herding dogs or the herding group. I remember one time I was at a party, um, many summers ago, and it was with the family, and the family had a border collie, and this border collie felt it absolutely necessary. This party was about 30 people deep, right? And as far as like a socializing nature, but you saw the dog. The dog was just constantly hurting. It was in its nature, right? Like the dog never got into the crowd. The dog was always kind of on the side, and then just kind of herded the people inside, outside, inside. It was really interesting to see. Um, and like I said, it wasn't aggressive in that way. It was just kind of interesting to see that the dog's nature pan out to be, oh yes, right, you're a herding dog. You're a herding dog, and you're hurting us, right? You're hurting us to the grill. You're hurting us to the inside in the garage. You just love to hurt us as individuals. That was a really good party. Now that I'm sitting here looking back at it, that was a really good party. I had fun and met some faces that I'm still talking to today. So you're now just tuning into this space, right? I am in my zesting groove, and quite frankly, it looks like it's gonna be a minute. So we're gonna get there. Oop, we're gonna get there. We're getting zesty with it. If I had to pick on another random topic, though, we had to just switch off, switch on. So I have this book that my dad recommended to me, and my dad knows about it because my grandmother told him about it. So funny how knowledge goes down the tree, right? Or goes up the tree, depending on how you view it. Um, but it's called the. I don't know what it's called. It is called the. We can just go look. Give me a second. Cultural literacy. Dictionary of cultural literacy, which kind of gives you way to how things work or what things are. And when I say how things work, because of what they are. Excuse me. So the thing that we got right, I went on to a my bad. I realized I was thinking, but I was not thinking aloud. See, that's what happens, right? When you find yourself um, thinking too much, too far, right? You tend to forget that you do have a voice, and so that's why you're hearing mine now. Like I said today, so the random topic that we're going on this tragic day is sorry I what I do is I can never it irks me. It's going back to that thinking, right? It irks me when people say, well, that's so random. And for me, I totally get what they're saying. Okay, I totally get it. I'm not someone who is so dense to not recognize that people are just saying, like it felt out of the blue, right? It's almost like it just fell out of the sky, right? Or it had no rhyme or reasoning, but that doesn't make it any less interesting, right? But it's the rhyme or reasoning that get me with random, right? For people to think like, oh, that was so random, and it's like, it's not that random. I sat and thought about this for a minute, and it's like, well, why are you thinking about that? I was like, oh, well, it was on the back burner since last week, and it's like, last week? Why are you thinking about something from last week? And it's like, well, I was thinking about it. These are the the trenches of thinking, right? Or of knowledge workers. So, but anyway, but this one completely random, and I say random because what I did is I went on to so that book is about 600 pages in depth, right? About 600 pages thick, with different topics, and it's all uniform in a way that kind of allows you to count it out, whatever. So what I did is I went to Google and I put in um, from I think page 10 or something, because like the first couple pages don't really matter. So I said like from page 10 to page 600, give me a random number, and then a number between 0 and 48, right? So what I did is I take those numbers, and I get a number, and then from that number I get to the page. I get to the page, take the second number from the 0 to 48. From the 48, you count, right? You count from the starting position, and you count to the next one. So that's how random, or that's what the selection process is for these topics. But they turn out to be pretty interesting. And like I said, it's one of those things where you have to look back and go, ha, God got jokes. God got jokes. You know what I mean? As far as how they kind of relate or don't relate. But the tragic challenge is connecting them all like Kevin Bacon, right? So the first one was Krypton. And I was like, wait a minute, Krypton, like kryptonite, like the thing that Superman is that's his I'm not sure if it's his weakness, his poison, his venom, or his is it his weakness, or what's it called? What's it called when you have a it is a weakness, but it's called that is yours. And look, I'm laughing because I want to say, oh, that's his kryptonite. Well, duh, that's the Lou Gehrig's disease loop all over again, you know. Um, but it's their not Achilles heel, but I guess that's what it is, weakness, right? But according to this, right, when I looked it up, krypton or Kr, chemical element, a rare gas of group 18 noble gases of the periodic table, which forms relatively few chemical compounds, about 3 times heavier than air. Krypton is colorless, odorless, tasteless, and monatomic. Now, I have no idea what any of those things mean in trait, right? And when I say in trait, like in comparison to something else, say oxygen or hydrogen or anything like that. But it's interesting to see that chemical element, a rare gas of group 18, noble gases. So I can't remember what makes noble gases noble. I'm not going to look it up right now. But I would think that something noble wouldn't necessarily be dangerous. But that might be that might be naive to think, oh, they're so noble, that doesn't make them dangerous. No, that makes them extra dangerous, as a matter of fact, because they're gonna hold true, right? But then, of course, going from this and then looking and realizing, like, oh, this is what Superman is allergic to, or Superman's allergy. It's like, oh no, man, this is not an allergy like I get a couple hives. This is an allergy like it will kill me. Like, stay away, like because it's kryptonite, which is green in fashion. And I'm saying it's fashion as far as when I looked it up. I was like, okay, well, kryptonite, but kryptonite is fictional, but Krypton is not. And so that was the first thing that came about. I think it's element 36. I would definitely wear that. Wear that upon one shirt. Because then the funny thing is, you wear that on your shirt, I'm sure, Superman saw it walk right across the room. You'd be like, yep, there we go. Chase after that one. Where'd he go? You know. But no, but Krypton, I didn't see. I tried to go. I tried to look deeper. I tried to research deeper. And when I say research deeper, I'm talking about just in passing, right? Like there comes a point where you gotta let a rabbit go because it's not gonna serve. It's not gonna serve the greater purpose, right? And I'm talking about the greater purpose of understanding something. You know what I mean? Like some rabbits just got to keep you. Some rabbits just got to keep you in shape, right? If you're a working dog, you gotta get that rabbit. Like that's all that rabbit's for, is to keep you in shape. The other ones are actually meant to lead you somewhere, right? So where it kind of led me though is, like, I tried to look for applications um, of Krypton, and I didn't find anything in the immediate, right? And like I said, I'm not going to go down that whole entire realm for no reason unless Krypton has this beneficial property that I have no idea of. But right now, that's all I got. That's what it said to me, or that's what it read to me right out of this dictionary. So if we looked into it though, the two discoverers were two guys. One was William Ramsey, and I guess the other one was Morris Travers. These are those kind of things though too. When I look at names, Morris is a strong name, and I'm trying to think. Have I met a Morris? I've met Morrises, Morsi, Morso, Morsai. No, Morsis, Morsai, Morsai. I don't know what you would call a plural group of the family of Moors, but I do I do know a share of Morse, right? But as far as someone whose first name is Morris, I've never seen that. Never seen a first name Morris, which is usually, like I said, that family name that comes with it. When people say, you know what, we can't decide on a name, we can't decide on the name, just give it the family name, and that's that, right? That's not too bad. Like I said, that doesn't lead to anything in particularly interesting. Like I said, all it does is remind me of Superman to think like Krypton. But I feel like I don't know Superman like that. I don't read comic books, which is unfortunate in its own way. But I feel like graphic novels have gone on the back burner lately. I haven't seen or heard anything. But like I said, I'm not in that space. This is what happens too. You know, when people are like, oh, well, that's a dying space, or when you go to a marketeer and be like, oh, that's a dying space, and it's like, well, how long did you spend in that space to know it's a dying space? Because to me, a space doesn't die. It goes back to that energy, right? As far as like it's finite in what it can do, and it's definite in what it can produce. It's just a matter of is it in use, right? If it's in use, what can it produce? And no, that's not to say that you have to be a producing thing to be a grateful thing. That's the one thing I can't stand either. You know, putting a value on a production line to a living thing. That's not always the case, right? This is why we're trying to give these things to the machines, guys. You know, but some things just the machine cannot do because the machine cannot supply that level of feeling. The machine cannot supply that level of inconsistency. The machine can supply a consistency that's almost scary. And I'm saying, you know, like a scary consistency that kind of it can kind of put you in, it can put you in a loop is what I'm trying to say, right? The level of consistency that a machine can have on your experience can set you for a loop. Which kind of reminds me, I'm happy that we have some stores out here. Vans will make her dance. Hey, Juicy J got my heart for days, days. Vans will make her dance. This guy. Anyway, the self checkout right at some of our stores now are starting to move, are starting to shift, right? See, doggone it. Sorry, this song. Like I said, Juicy J, he's a piper. You know what I mean? And I'm saying that as far as like being a Pied Piper to be able to get people together and be at it. It's I will say being a piper, which like I said is to populate the people with the hype that you bring. He's one of those people that I've always loved, especially from 3 6 Mafia. But anyway, but these recent stores or stores here recently have started saying like, okay, look, listen, the computer, right? Like it shifted from we'll have cashiers, right? Um, because I'm trying to think when I worked at the grocery store, we did have self checkout, but self checkout was not open all day, and it wasn't open all day, and it's still very much needed an attendant, right? Which I look now and I go, I'm sure the two attendants that I actually um I grew up with, and I say grow up with as far as like having that first job, they were both older. They were both senior citizens. Like they both were retired. Like there's no reason why they should have been working. And I'm saying that as far as like they worked because they wanted to work. They, like I said, going back to that purpose and having a fulfilling purpose. They were those kind of people that they had amazing lives, amazing backgrounds, in a way that made me kind of go like, and you're here at the grocery store, you know what I mean? Like this early, we're getting bees, y'all. Give me a second. I said we're getting BBs, like they're trying to go for the closet. They're trying to go for the closet. That's where the flowers are, right? But anyway, but both of these people, right? And these are not because I'm just telling you about people in my village as I grew up in, right? Because I'm starting to realize that the village is in decline, right? I don't know why. You hear that? That's 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 a message of shh, watch this, right? So back to talking about the village I grew up in, though, right? both those individuals, I'm sure have long passed by now. I mean, unless they're going up into their hundreds. You know what I mean? Like I said, they were already about like 70. One was 74. We celebrated his 74th birthday at the store, which was pretty cool. And then the other one, you know what? The other one, no, she's alive and well. She's alive and well, and I hope she's doing well too. Because by the time I left, she was having grandbabies, not grandbaby, grandbabies. So she had two grandbaby girls that I was like, oh, go on, get it, T. You know what I mean? And those are her first grandbabies. So no, she's alive and well because she had to be at the telling end, right? She had to be turning 70 on the way out. So no, no, they might both still be very alive and well. I'm making it sound like this is like 30 years ago. No, this is like 15 years ago. You know what I mean? Like this is like 15 years ago. So, huh? Who knows? They may be 90 and kicking, right? 90 and kicking. I mean, shoot, even Cliff over here is 77 years old. From Cheers, you still see him. I've been scraping this lemon for the last 5 minutes. I'm looking at these bees. The bees are coming in. They are the bees' knees. Oh no, they're going for my honeycomb. Okay, fellas. Oh, they also probably smell the fruit too. And I ain't talking about the lemons. What y'all want? Like they want something. They want that honey, which is gonna be cool too. I am curious. I went to last year. I got the chance to go see a beekeeping setup, right? Because part of this plan, part of the plan is beekeeping. Part of the plan, the plan. So that's why I always kind of laugh. People are like, what part of the plan was that?" And it's like, it's always been a part of the plan. What plan? Mm-mm. God's plan. Look, God's plan. Which speaking of shout, right? You make me wanna. And shout out to those who go off who go off the cliff with me. Because Lord knows when I say hey, want to go on an adventure, they're like, oh no. When Tragic says adventure, that could an adventure with Tragic can range from a trip to the grocery store to finding yourself in the middle of Montana wondering why the bears are hunting us. That's the range of adventure you can have with Tragic. So shout out to those who say yes and find themselves out in the middle of Montana hunting, or hunting themselves out of the bear trap, right? That's what adventure can do, which is kind of funny because I mean, like I said, for me, a lot of people are like, "Oh, that's, how can you do that?" I'm like, well, bump enough screws loose in this machine, and you'll figure you'll figure why we're in the middle of Montana. You know, we were just we were just here hours ago. How did we end up here? And it's like, oh, trust me. you want to say yes, just say yes. you know but like I said, I definitely understand when it comes to the nature, right? The nature of adventure. If I'm being honest and real, that was probably that's gone, right? And I'm saying that as far as the energies for it, because man, oh man, man, oh man, the adventures you can go on with a backpack and a map. Which reminds me, I ended up finding my map book from one of the adventures I did have. Like I said, I did spring cleaning, cleaned out my library, was able to get rid of some of these books. But one book I did have in mind was that map book that I used because I didn't want to use because I was gonna go across the country, right? Like it's hard to use a paper map of across the country when you're not taking the major interstate, right? You're taking these back roads, these small roads, these state roads. So you need to have kind of a state by state picture. I was able to highlight my trail, which kind of made me laugh because I could have sworn I took this trail or that trail. I'm like, oh no, the map is how I highlighted it down. So I might share it or I might put it down or try to see if I can recall any of those things. So I definitely took those pictures, man, which is kind of what reminds me too. When I was thinking of not those pictures, but and not timelessness. Because some of these pictures, man, some of these pictures look timeless in themselves. But that's the changing nature, right? That's the changing nature of the background. To say like something looks old or something doesn't look old. Going back to that same joke, people like I was gonna use Morris, right? Morris. That's an old person's name. I'm like, well, how do you think an old person gets to be an old person with an old person name? Before you had old man Morris, you had baby Morris. You know what I mean? And people are like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm like, yeah, that's right. You know what I mean? Morris or yeah, Mr. Morris just woke up one day and said, I'm gonna go by Morris now. You know, my name's been Mayante this entire time, but I finally decided to go by Morris. And Mayante is just something it was between Machete and Devontae and Ya. Ya, Mo, Ya! Anyway. I'm trying to think how old he's now. I think Soldier Boy is like, he's in his early 30s too, if not mid 30s. Like, I feel like he was in high school when I was in middle school. So, yeah, he's right there. You know what I mean? He's right there in that same regard. Doggone. Now, I will say, we probably would be better off. We probably would be better off shaving these things down. When they're probably a little colder. I'm not sure if I'm getting the full sweep, right? I'm not sure if I'm getting a full sweep of lemon without it being, a whole issue. Speaking of things we can't pronounce as we pronounce them, I did gather this quote. I had this quote come across my feed, and we swallow greedily any lie that flatters us, but we sip only little by little at the truth we find bitter. Denny Dewa, and I'm telling you right now, I mispronounced that altogether because I'm not sure what the pronunciation is, but I'll spell it right. Is Denis Diderot, or Delta Echo November Igloo Sierra Delta Igloo Delta Echo Romeo Oscar Tango. That is the phonetic alphabet, and you got to stay in practice. And tell myself the other day, I think V is Victor, if not victory. My dad always said Victor, and I don't think it's Victor. It might be Victor though. He's always said V as in Victor. The victor goes the spoils, as they would say. Telling you, man. I don't even think. I'm trying to think what happened. There's something must have happened because now we have American Ninja, right? Now we have American Ninja, and then we have all these other um renditions of fitness, right? Rendition fitness shows. But I am curious as to what in the world happened to American Gladiator. Something about that to me said like something major happened. It was just like, oh, we can't do that anymore, right? Because I'm surprised that hasn't made a comeback. Like, I don't know about y'all, but I'm more than happy, right, to train up if it meant being able to take them down. Like, and I'm saying that as far as like, if you remember those cats, I want to say that they were basically like in split with the wrestling tropes, right? Or they were basically next door to the wrestlers. You know what I mean? As far as entertainment or performers or fit performers, that's what they are, right? I mean, these are people who they conjure up the the physique, right? They conjure up the physique of this gladiator to perform these things, or be able to take a hit and do this, or take a tumble or do this, or have this appearance of doing that. Um, because you put up two regular people up there, right, looking like summer camp of 1978, like, and go, you know, battled. Uh, but yeah, no, but this guy, Denny, which I did realize that Denis is Denny, not Dennis. So, but Denny does have a point. that we swallow greedily any lie that flatters us, but we sip only little by little at truth we find bitter. And you know, that that kind of makes me think, as if thinking needs to be the anything going on right now, when it just should be grate the lemon, skin the lemon. No, these are the times that you think. Because to me, that's that repetitive nature, right? Once you can kind of turn your brain off, knowing that this is what we're doing with this, right? You don't have to think about anything else, or not necessarily you don't have to think about anything else, but what you're thinking can actually think in a pattern thought, because this is already taken up, right? This is not taking up another line of thinking. So before we get back to that quote, that's one of those things that allows me to really appreciate getting into road crew, or like rowing. Um, I remember it from, or I recall, it had to be the 2012 Olympics. I think they were in. I think they were in China. I can't remember if it was the China Olympics or the or Beijing or London. I can't remember if it was the Beijing Olympics or the London Olympics, but I remember that there was one essence of the row crew, and I'll say this till the day, right? Row your boat. Um, the announcer or the commentator made a very big point to say that, like, people part of the row crew can be so intense in what they're doing, can be so intense in their body, and because they are stationary, right? Because they are in the boat, and there's a level of trust, right? Their brain, their brain can go into a autopilot mode to then turn their sight off, to then turn their hearing off. Like, their body is exerting so much that their brain has decided, and it's not uncommon. And I'm saying, like, it's not uncommon to the point that people are still blind and deaf by the end of the race. To say, like, your body exerted so much, that it decided to turn off its facilities temporarily to achieve this goal. I don't know about y'all, but that sounds so intensely awesome that I want to do it. Right? Like, that's one of those, I want to do it. Like, you could tell someone, and like, and everyone has their Mount Everest, right? Like, why would anyone want to climb Mount Everest? Well, when you tell people the trek, right, or when you tell people of the epic that is climbing Mount Everest, then you sort of start getting this cult following, right? Now, I'm not that crazy about it, but it's just something that's always been intensely close into being something that makes me go, like, yeah, that's what fires me up, right? Like, to be able to exert so much energy in a direction, right, or so much energy into a victory that, particularly facilities that you relied on mean nothing in the realm of this win, right? Which is kind of going back to that warrior mentality, right? Which is of nothing but just a shaving, right? I'm not the lemon. I'm not the lemon of my life. I am but the zest. The very best parts, right? The pith. The pith is what's been left. Lordy, lordy. Now we got snap your fingers. Do a step. We got a lot of lemons here. I didn't realize how many lemons we have and how long it's gonna take. But this is another reason why we need to get a scale and scale it out, because then we start seeing, right? Is it better? Is it better to measure this in, you know, like, from the looks of it, it's probably better to measure it in weight than it would be in uh cups. Because, like, I feel like if I smash this, right, like if I just let it sit fluffily, then it would equal something else, right? But if anything, I don't even need to measure it. That's just gonna the measurement of this is going to dictate how thick the concentrate is. And I think that's probably where we should put more of our focus. And I am talking to myself, so if you're in on this journey, then by all means join me on this weed. But for what I'm trying to say is, it might end up being the point of measurement. It's not necessarily, and this is, like I said, this is going back to, you know being productive, right? Or something that is producing. Not everything is meant to produce something in which you can't use or eat, right? Now we're talking about eating. We're talking about consumption. And like I said, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, well, maybe it's not this product that I look at and think, okay, this is what is to be weighed, or this is what is valuable in this metric. It's more or less how much concentrate of the zest it can make, right? But I can tell you this right now, I don't see this process with anybody, but it might even be a question of realizing the difference of lemons. Because I didn't even realize like lemons. When I started doing this further research into citron fruit, or the history of lemonade, or the making of lemonade, or the secret of lemonade, right? When I started getting into this hobby for what it is now, right? Um, I didn't realize that there were so many breeds of lemon, just like there are breeds of tomato. Like there are breeds of plant, just like there are breeds of dog, right? And I'm saying is, going back to that work and breed. For today, we're staying busy in the midst, right? In the midst of is it minced, minced, mist, mist, MIDST, mist, in the midst of it all. We are now welcoming in the new month in a way that makes us kind of say, "Pour some sugar on me." Oh, like a dying cat, I sing. At least that's how I feel like I sound. Just a little training that takes it, right? But speaking of training, we are training ourselves today, right? With a realm of thought to realize that not everything is going to turn out the same in a world that constantly changes. You know what I mean? Like what we see today, what we know today, eh, you know, what do we know today in comparison to tomorrow? You know, I'll know today tomorrow. I'll know about today tomorrow. And that's what the healthy assumption, right? That me and my ass are gonna be there. And I say that, like I said, I say that as a Shrek joke, because even you know, even donkeys show up in the Bible. Let me tell you. I think that's the great thing too. Like I said, even kind of realizing like, oh, that's not the last chapter, right? We're on to the next chapter. Or oh, that's that page didn't work out very well. I know this much. You want to see something entertaining? So like I said, I've been rewatching Cheers, and there's this one instance, and I laugh because, so just to say this, I never watched Cheers like that. Because as a kid, like I said, as a kid, I didn't understand Cheers because I didn't go to the bar. I've never been to a bar, right? As a kid, you don't understand why any of these things are funny, or why all these people are together. Like you don't have any other. There's no contextual understanding, right? Which is why home shows like Family Matters, or the Brady Bunch is too far down. Um, I'm trying to think. They were the '80s. Cheers was the '80s. The Jeffersons were the '70s, which I did. I did like All in the Family. I liked All in the Family. I liked their spinoff of the Jeffersons, right? Which is still messed up. I like, to this day, I still feel like that's just one of those things that just like down and dirty. But just like look at history, right? The Jeffersons had to learn that they were fired from the newspaper that morning. CBS didn't even have the nerve to like tell them the night before, or tell them at the film, or like the last filming, like, hey, by the way, CBS canceled your show. They had to like Sherman Hemsley and Isabella. I can't think of her last name to save my life right now, but they had to learn that they were fired from the newspaper that morning. I'm just like, that's messed up, guys. Like, come on. If one person had one job, like just do that job. But yeah, but so anyway, I'm watching it now. But the one show that I did pick up um earlier than Cheers was Frasier. And so to see the Frasier character before Frasier was even a concept, right? Taking Frasier out of this environment and then putting Frasier into his own environment, or as far as the universe, right, or whatever verse they're speaking in. Because you got to stay, there still has to be a level of continuity, right? Like the reason why that the break off was able to happen was because of continuity. It's kind of like breaking off a part of a rose plant, right? Like if you break off a healthy stem of a rose plant and transplant it into another one and give it that time to sprout, right? You'll still have the two beautiful roses you have. and I'm saying that as far as, but however, it has to be, there has to be a continuity to it. If you don't break it off at the right point, or if you break it off and don't trim it properly, you're not going to have the continuity that allows both those flowers to be the same, while though beautiful, right? While though beautiful, because that's the one thing I'm really curious, and I'm saying this as a side note because it keeps popping up on my feed too, as something that what you should be watching. Mufasa, right? The Lion King, which it's almost like they can't get rid of the Lion King part, but it's Mufasa, right? It's the prequel. Like now people are starting to go into prequel lands, or how this came to be, or why this and why that. So they're trying to fill in these gaps, right? Which sometimes though, which is what I'm starting to realize, like I said, from a media review, a lot of people are starting to put in a lot, like gaps are starting to become trendy in writing, which a part of me is like, I get it. Another part of me is like, I can't stand it. Like, just like, if you're gonna let a mystery of a gap be a gap, then let it be a gap. You don't have to fill it, right? You don't have to fill in that gap with another with another sense of story, right? However, that's kind of where maybe I'm wrong, right? Maybe I'm wrong in that. Maybe it's the gaps, right? Maybe the gaps is exactly where people want to be, right? The gaps of the story, because even that, right? Like I wanted to do an analysis years ago. I don't want to do it too much anymore. Only because it just seems so not tedious, but just like the skill for me would be having someone else do it in a way that makes me kind of like, oh, we'll see, like that's a transferable skill into this realm, right? Or as a transferable skill into this regard. But before I get into that, or before I go deep into getting myself distracted from doing what needs to be done, right, which is zesting these doggone lemons, uh, let's take a couple steps back, right? Context and knowing shows, and knowing um why something is hilarious or funny, or going into a prequel, right? So Frasier, so they finally introduced the character Frasier into this Cheers show, but there was one point, what was it, that was like, see, this is the reason why this show is also timeless. I can't remember. Oh, trust me, when I watch it back, I'll be like, I know exactly what I was gonna go on about as far as the episode I had in mind. But anyway, what are y'all watching on? I think that's even a curious thing too, because I don't see too many things coming out nowadays. Like if anything, I really hope the summer of 2024 is a summer of good media rest, or especially it being a star year, right? I hope the Olympics just kind of take the center stage of this summer. Hopefully Paris puts on a good show. I love the Olympics. The Olympics is probably one of my favorite regards of human nature. As far as we put up our best against your best, and we see who is the best, right? And for America, I mean, I don't know about you, but there's a certain intoxication of USA, USA. And it's like if you have never been in a if you've never been in a chanting USA crowd, I highly recommend it. I highly recommend it. If you've never been in a USA chanting crowd, one in which you lose yourself, and you do, because that's all you can hear, right? And like I said, however you feel about it, what I'm trying to promote and really get communicated is the energy, right? The energy and synergy of a group that are all on the same page, in the same book, reading the same line on the same time, right? Like everybody is in step, and not in a way that makes them not individuals, but in a way that they are more powerful together, that they are organized, right, than they are as individuals, like as the together of their parts, they are strong. And it's a really cool thing. Like I said, if you ever get the chance to be in a large crowd, especially especially for sports or conference or anything like that, and with USA, I'm telling you right now, you're gonna feel something that make you kind of go like, oh, it still got some shake, still got some shake to it, and it will. Like I said, hopefully this music is still pretty tame in the background, because this is the perfect volume for me to be jamming to. That lemon's done. Doggone it, y'all! I want to know what I was thinking about when I was thinking about Cheers. We had it. Like I said, I've been watching it, and it's been interesting. Like I said, I didn't realize the time that it was sitting in. But I bet you, and I'm saying this as far as looking at it from a writing standpoint, I bet you. I remember what I was saying now. Writing was the trigger word. But I need to look at, or I'm going to look at, just from a point of view of understanding, right? Like this was before my time. This is a historical perspective, right? Um, for my own self research and understanding of the world. Like whatever you want to do, go off and do it. But I don't. I'm looking back now and I'm thinking to myself, well, I remember '70s being a golden age of television, right? And I remember the '90s being a golden age of television. But I don't think the '80s were a golden age of television. If anything, I think the '80s were probably a golden age of movies or cinema. But I'm trying to even think on what kind of fabric we had in the '80s, right? For that to be the case, because that's what ends up happening, right? Anytime I look at it from a perspective, or anytime someone says, "Oh, you know what we were doing in this year," the first thing I do, right, is look at the administration and go, "Okay, you can kind of see where people's times and attentions and monies and energies and focus, where the focus was during that time." And for me, like I said, this one was a curious a curious being, because they, like I said, they keep mentioning the '80s, but they mention it like today, which makes it timeless in itself. But what I was getting at though, in this scene, right, and how Frasier came about, and looking at it, and what episode I'm on. I'm not sure what episode I'm on. One of them was Suspicion. I think that's like the last one. And the only reason why I know the episode name is because I had to go look up the song that Carla was dancing to. It's just leave me to the lemons that I got. Okay. Cheers to you too. But no, but there's a scene. There's a scene where uh, Diane, if you're not familiar with the characters, Diane and Sam are ex lovers, right? And long story getting shorter, they have to form this lie, right, together. And it's always curious because it reminds me of the same scene of George and Elaine in Seinfeld, when they have to form this lie together, right? And so for me, it's always a curious thing, because I said, how people form a lie within themselves, right, is always fascinating. Because I'm like, how in the world do you even believe what you're saying right now? Like, like I said, it's frustrating. It's frustrating when the heart is good and the intentions are just misaligned, right? Like, it's just frustrating, right? Because it's childish, it's immature. I mean, like I said, it's just frustrating. It's not necessarily detrimental, but then when you see someone who does it to themselves on purpose, in a way that you can't even lie themselves out of their lie to tell them the truth, that, like, hey, you're lying to yourself. It's even more fascinating. Even more fascinating, um, when you see the nature of two people trying to create a lie within themselves for each other. Oh, it's kind of like, they use it, so they call it, this is the technique, it's called the newlywed game, is the technique, right? But it's the same trope. 9-9, Brooklyn 9-9 had a skit about this same concept, or the same topic. um you know it was the same guy who plays, I can't think of his name. He plays Jerry on he plays Jerry on he plays Jerry on Parks and Rec. I can't think of his name. I can't think of his name right now. But anyway, he plays the sheriff in 9-9. It's the same producers, right? Uh same film house, or same taping house. But he looked at Captain Holt and Jake, right? He looked at those two and was like, no one ever wins that newlywed game. And that's what it is, right? It's the only way it can be is the truth. The only way it can be is the truth. Because what makes a secret? One person knowing, or two? It's just a matter of understanding. And it's funny. But anyway, there's that scene with Diane and Sam, and they're trying to create this lie for Frasier, right? And they come, and they're writing, right? It's just writing by committee, right? It's orchestra by committee, which is one reason why when you start having compositions by committee, it gets pretty interesting pretty fast because you're like, oh man, a room full of writers, and this is what y'all came up with. You know what I mean? And it's like, yeah, yeah, but then you have one person or two people. You still got to get through it, right? Like what's funny to yourself or what's funny for you, what's funny in you, doesn't always express out the same way. You know what I mean? Like kind of like you had to be there, right? You had to be there. Well, if you've never been there, you can't even go there to try to realize. You know what I mean? If you've never been there, if you've never been there, sometimes you don't have to be there. You just have to have been there, and that's what makes it hilarious for everybody around, right? If you've been there, if you've been there, if you've been there hunting with tragic, you would know why this is funny. You know what I mean? As far as like, yo, no, this makes complete sense, right? But just because it doesn't make sense doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't make dollars. Everyone has their own ways and means of, like I said, building upon those values. I'm just happy that, like I said, the last awakening of things, and I'm saying that to say, like, it's been pretty cool to realize, like I said, the changing of seasons and just changing and just change, right? It's been pretty cool to be able to just kind of say, like, huh, I'm tired now, and then go to sleep, right? And not have to torture oneself to think like, okay, I gotta wait, right? Or hey, I need to sleep. I want to sleep right now, right? Being able to say like, for now, I am tired, and then go to sleep. That's nice. Comes with a level of peace that only comes with like I said, realizing like things change, things are gonna change. But maybe even these lemons, man. I'm telling you, like I thought I was putting a pension on these things. They all still here. They all still here. What's another level of discussion we can have here? Another one of these random topics, right? That I ended up getting from like Krypton, which is funny. I got Augustus Caesar, which I did write him down because he was actually interesting that I thought, as far as how we come about knowing what time it is. Like for me, like I said, going back to standards, right? Going back to this is the standard for this. This is the standard for that. This is how we can fit. This is how I can find it. This is how I can repair it. Whatever, right? I had to listen to the song. It's Rack City. Yep. I think Rack City is in Chattanooga, Tennessee, but correct me if I'm wrong. It's either Chattanooga. I think it is Chattanooga, Tennessee. Is technically Rack City is what I looked up. But you got some of the grandmas out there who are still on the internet dancing to this song. I'm like, yep, there go your granny, man. That's your full blown. That's your full blown grandma right there. Yo, I'm trying to find the writing, the little notation I had for what was I talking about? Augustus Caesar. Long story getting short on him though, and what I remember because I don't have it written down or I don't have it within my reach, which sucks. I took the time to write it. Oh, is that there? Oh, there he is. There he is. Right. So Augustus Caesar, the first emperor of Rome, the adopted son of Julius Caesar, in his reign from 44 BC to AD 14. So that's the first thing that caught my attention before I started reading. Because usually, I don't know about y'all, but when I'm writing something down, I read and write as I go. And now that I'm saying that out loud, what I probably need to do in the future or as I go about this is change that up a little bit. Like I said, usually I would write as I read and read as I write. So I'm finding out as I'm writing, I'm reading. So it kind of saves me two steps. But it sounds like to me what I need to do is I need to read the whole passage, then read the passage, and then read the passage again. And for this one, the first thing that caught my attention was that time span, right? 44 BC to AD 14. Now, if you're not familiar of BC and AD, right? BCE is before Common Era, or before Christ, or before the recognition of Jesus, right? So, like I said, in BCE, sometimes you'll see it as BCE, which is again before Common Era, era, not error, era, era. So, but going into AD 14, right? That means that Jesus is still a kid. So it's kind of cool to kind of see like, oh, okay, Augustus Caesar, how that came about. Like I said, 7 degrees of bacon, or 6 degrees of bacon. But Augustus Caesar, the first emperor of Rome, the adopted son of Julius Caesar. Et tu, Brute? Watch out, B. This B is right here in my face. Like, come on, man. Be cool. Anyway, in his reign from 44 BC to AD 14, Rome enjoyed peace and the arts flourished. The time of Augustus is considered a golden age of literature in Rome. Jesus was born during Augustus' reign. The month of August is named for Augustus, a time when literature and the arts in a nation are at their height, is sometimes called the Augustan Age. The 18th century in England, when many excellent authors were at work, is called the Augustan Age of English literature, which had me kind of laugh to think, like I said the other day, I'm so happy that English teachers still teach Shakespeare, or Shakespeare is still a part of the curriculum. One thing that kind of reminds me when it comes to English literature, or even just that realm of topic, is, people are having a lot of issues with entertainers today. Um, and they just kind of like ignore the entire fact that all the plays that Shakespeare put on in, the Elizabethan theater, or all the plays and things that people did, for others, they were all men. Like, they were all men. And there are female characters in these. There are female characters in these playwrights. So how it wasn't a problem then, but it's a problem now, is just kind of one of those things that makes me go, The things that people focus on and the things that make people mad, the things that make people mad baffle me, because the things that make me mad are just like, I feel like everyone should be mad about them. But I think maybe that's probably how everyone feels. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of the trap, right? That's kind of the trap of short sight, right? When you have short sight, your consideration or your understanding of another's position is very low, right? Going back to that, you're probably against it because you don't understand it. And that's just your way of saying I don't understand it, without, like, instead of saying, hey, I don't understand it, and taking accountability for your ignorance, right? Because ignorance is not a bad thing until it's woefully so. When you are woefully ignorant because that's what you want to be, right? That's what you want to be, because you just like thinking hurts you, right? Then that's when things, to me, in my opinion, as I think about them, think, as I think about them, that's how they come about. It makes kind of people go like, oh, that's why you mad? I'm so sorry. Like, I have no idea how to help you. But to stay far, far away, because I can't even help your line of thought. You're thinking in a pattern that I can't even fathom, have never been there, and don't want to be there, and you can keep that to yourself. Love you, but I'm gonna think in this pattern. This is what's gonna keep me. What's the word I'm looking for? What's the phrase I'm looking for? That's what keeps my green to the right and my red to the left. That's what keeps me flying. Man, oh man. Mm. We're gonna try and see. We might do it edited. We might do it edit, or see if we can speed this up, because I would prefer, like, I'd prefer to snap my fingers. Like I said, see, this is not I'm not producing these things to be visually appealing. I mean, granted, like I said, when I go to the next slide, or when I get to the next point, I'd be like, boom, and, there it goes. There's clips for that, but as far as actually doing that, no. Like, we can do that later. We can do that later. We can have that later. Mm. That lemonade, though, that lemonade I made yesterday with the brown sugar, or the other day. You know what? I'm about to get ready. I'm about to get really ready for yesterday to just not. Yesterday's just gonna be any other day as a day, right? The only day I got is today. Yesterday was remember when. Tomorrow's just gonna be tomorrow. Let tomorrow be tomorrow. You know, the tomorrow exists, and for some people, they're like, of course tomorrow exists, right? And for other people, they're like, no, tomorrow doesn't exist. And for some people, tomorrow is unknown. I'm telling you right now, tomorrow is very well known, and tomorrow is on its way. Lord, tomorrow is on its way. The sun will come out tomorrow. I know that's not the way a song goes, but give me a break, right? I don't have the rights. I haven't seen Annie in years. Look, I don't even know what year Annie was I don't even know what year Annie was came out because they stay making Annie though. Like the rights for that production must be so like non-existent or just open because they redo Annie anytime they can redo Annie, they redo Annie like quickly, like with a gusto. Like it's almost like every 5 years we need new Annie, guys. You know, people don't believe in tomorrow anymore. Make a new Annie. But no, Annie, I'm not sure if Annie's up there, and I'm not sure if Shirley Temple was Annie. I'm not sure. Like I said, these are little Hollywood things or media driven things that if you don't get up and actually squeeze something out of your life, you know what I mean. You'll get stuck in those. You'll get stuck in those loops. That's what they're designed to do, right? Um, that's the one thing I kind of like with this changing of season. It's not to say that I want technology to slow down. Technology is never going to slow down. Technology is here to stay. What I want to speed up though is the action of people. If I want people to speed up in their action, if it means that the AI, and I say the AI, right? Ooh, AI. If the intelligence is increasing, right, in speed, or is being augmented, and I say it's not in speed, but if it's being augmented by the nature of computers on the back of the computers and on the sweat of robots, then that leaves us to do the human things. And I feel like squeezing lemons is a human thing to do. What does a robot need with a tasty glass of lemonade? Nothing, right? What does a computer need with a tasty glass of lemonade? Nothing. It's completely a humanistic thing. So, with that in mind, though, Augustus. So it's peacetime. That's why. But my whole thing is, so then what was Julius Caesar? Then was Julius Caesar did Julius Caesar, was he touting himself as a king? Was that the issue? Because it says the first emperor of Rome. Like, then what was Julius Caesar? These are the kind of things that kind of make me go, wait, did I not learn correctly of who these people were? You know what I mean? Or did I not learn correctly on or consistently, not necessarily correctly, right? Because learning correctly sounds like an oxymoron in itself. To learn something correctly, that's like saying to fail. What is it like? We successfully failed. I can't remember what president it was. I want to say Jimmy Carter. We failed successfully. Wait, what? Which is a running joke in its own self of administration. We might not make this container might get full before we finish this box. Anywho, but 44 BC to 14 AD. So, like I was saying earlier, BC is before Common Era or before Christ, and AD is Anno Domini or Domini, which means year of the Lord. So here we are in the year of the Lord, 2024, and wondering what the next steps are going to be on the media front, because the way that I see it, we are now shifting to think that art is something that can be led or deciphered, right, by an algorithm, which is algorithm is on this list of words too, which I got a kick out of that. Algorithm came out the number pair was 447, or excuse me, that's me switching up numbers again. 47411. 47411 is what came out to mean algorithm in that particular algorithm. Go figure, right? In that algorithm came out at 47411, and that's what I'm saying. Like right now, the algorithm is in a shape that I'm seeing. Right? It's kind of cool when you step back, right? When you step back from the forest, or you step back from the jungle, or when you step back, and that's really what it is, right? When you step back and you kind of have to look and see the the full picture. I won't say the big picture, right? Because the big picture is still the big picture leaves out the small details, which is also deceiving, right? Manipulative to your perception. And I'm saying that even to yourself, right? Like your brain, my brain, our brain is trying so hard to keep us safe, right? It's trying to so hard to keep everything secure, not realizing like sometimes the security of something is the comfort of a lie, and that lie is the same lie that we swallow greedily any lie that flatters us, but we sip only little by little at the truth. And so when it comes to being able to take in the truth, right, as bitter as it may be, as pithy as it may be, um, it's a practice, right? It's a practice of realizing like, hey, you may not be thinking in the best pattern right now, right? Or maybe that pattern is not supplying to a better version of you, right? And the only person who knows that, right? The only person who knows you is you. That is the greatest secret, right? That's between you and God. You know who you are. And if you don't know who you are, then you go through the steps of learning who you are, right? And you're gonna fail. You're gonna fail because, and the thing is, no one's gonna succeed at knowing who you are except you. And so, if you successfully know who you are, or you get to a comfort level of being like, yeah, that's who I am, right? You can change. You can change however you want to change. Like you can change as much as you need to change how you change, right? What you do, what you do will never be the problem. Is how you go about doing it. And like I said, for me, by me, for me, I'm not speaking out to say like this is advice that shall flourish the world with grand tangible outcomes. No, this is just something to perhaps maybe just change your mind for a moment, right? And I'm talking about even myself. Like there are times that you're thinking to yourself, I don't need to hear all that, but yeah, no, you do. Sit down, right? Sit down and take the medicine for what it is, however it is, right? And that right there is kind of where people just bail out, you know. And I'm saying this as on a personal level. That's where they bail out. They bail out when you get to the pith, right? They took all your zest. They rubbed you the wrong way. They rubbed you in this direction, like this doggone lemon. But I'm not mad. I'll tell you about it later. But they rub you down to the pith, and then that's what you're left with, right? But guess what? Even down to your pith, you still got the juice. And you just gotta make sure you get yourself up every day, right? Get yourself up every day and get the juicing. Get the juice in your day. Like I said, for me, I just use this as to start my day. It allows me to get that same counting feeling, right? Part of the workout, part of the gym workout, or part of working out at the gym, or part of working out. It's not just a physical thing, right? Working out is also it doubles as meditation if you do it with intention, right? You wouldn't think counting out 50 sit-ups 4 times twice a day wouldn't mean anything. You would think, right? What would I just say? 50 sit-ups, 4 sets, right? It says 200 sit-ups. 200 sit-ups twice a day. That's 400 sit-ups a day. So that means you took at least 400 seconds, right? Let's just go ahead and say 800 seconds, right? And at 800 seconds, which is 80, right? It goes in once. What did it say? 800 seconds, right? 800 seconds. Huh. Give me a second, y'all. I went into a whole different mindset of math as far as realizing, because 400 seconds, right? 400 seconds is right under 600 seconds, and 600 seconds is 10 minutes. So what is that? 12 minutes? Because if you have 10 minutes and then you have 200, right? If you do 800 minus 600, which is 200, that 200 is 2 minutes. That's 240, right? Because 240 would be 40 seconds, or excuse me, 240 seconds. Oh Lord, 240 seconds is 4 minutes. I'm not. I'm just. I mean, like I said, I'm trying. I'm trying to hold four figures in my head at the same time, and it's not working out. But this is why stuff like this, right? Repetitive nature of doing those things, right? Because what did I say? That was 10 minutes. 10 minutes plus 10 minutes plus 4 minutes, so 14 minutes. So just 12 minutes. I'll just leave it at 12 minutes, right? I know we did a whole math problem, which I'm sure was probably simple for everybody out there. I'm even to myself, right? I'm like, come on now, do that mental math a little faster. But anyway, but that's 12 minutes, right? That you're sitting with yourself in a diligent state, right? You have a purpose, you have a goal, you have a finish line, you're going. And it's 12 minutes worth of that focus. And that 12 minutes of strenuous focus, or that 12 minutes of dedicated focus, or that 12 minutes of consistent focus, doing those push-ups, doing those laps, lifting that, doing this, whatever, that repetitive nature, right? That workout, you're working out your thought. And that 12 minutes, to think that 12 minutes can help your entire day of 1440. 1,440 minutes, by the way. But I'm just saying, to think that took up, that 12 minutes is what held up the rest of your day to be something productive for yourself, towards yourself. Like, I just don't understand. Like, why in the world would you not want to be your best self? Yourself. Yourself. I got Two Step playing in the background right now, which reminds me, I need to call my uncles. I think I'm trying to think. I have more uncles than I have aunts. I think. Hold on, let me see. One, two. So that, yeah, no, that eliminated that real quick. 1, 2 out of 7. So yeah, I have more uncles. Um, on one side of my family, and I have more uncles on both sides of my family. So shout out to the uncles out there. Not the ones that take taxes from you though. They seem to be on some crazy stuff. That uncle. I can't believe that though. The sixth largest in the nation, Connecticut. Connecticut. They will cut what they want out of your check. I can tell you right now. But no, but the other ones make sense though. New York, Hawaii, Vermont, Maine, and California. Those all make sense. Not only in size and jurisdiction, but they make size. Like I bet you, if I look up Vermont and Maine, if I look up Vermont and Maine as far as like on a populous scale, right? If I look them up, they probably told uncle that they didn't need his money, right? Which is fine. You don't have to do a whole bunch of mandatory stuff if you don't need the federal aid. And because I wouldn't think that they would have a larger population than Rhode Island, right? And Rhode Island is smaller than them, but my whole thing is Rhode Island um, has a lot of installations that make them of higher priority to Uncle, so they can keep their funding down, right? They can keep their in funding down because they've taken on to basically the trade off. They had the trade off, and every state has their trade off, which I think is probably the thing that I miss most when it comes to going to national conferences or seeing national conferences. Right, you get to see people from all over come through here with their attitudes to match. Right, you're like, well, where in the world are you from? And then they'll tell you proudly, I'm from so and so Vermont. I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't know that's what they did up there. But you go ahead and eat that ice cream now. Which reminds me, I did look up I've still been trying to get inspired, right? To what else can I make with a box full of lemons other than lemonade, right? Lemonade is day one stuff, but you got to get through day one to get to day 100, right? So as we go about it in this last week of life with lemons, I have looked up other recipes and other outcomes, and one of them was lemon ice cream, which for me, I don't think I'm just not a very big person about creamy citrus. Like even creamy citrus sounds uncomfortable, so I'm just kind of like, what could that possibly be? But who knows? Same regard as frozen lemonade, right? I did think about popsicles. Um, as like I said, as the summer is here and the pools are opening up, because Lord knows, be sitting up there, get you a nice popsicle, sitting there in my floral shorts, being good to go. Which reminds me, Which reminds me, what's it remind you of, Tragic? It reminds me that we need to get recertified. I'm telling this as your PSA right now. It is time to get recertified in CPR. If you do not know CPR, um, or it's been a while, and when I say a while, it's been more than 5 years. It's been more than 5 years since you have taken a CPR course. It is time for you to renew your credentials and to learn CPR. This includes abdominal thrust, not Heimlich remover, not remover. See, I even got it wrong. Heimlich remover, no. Heimlich maneuver. It is no longer called the Heimlich maneuver because somewhere along the way, Heimlich got tired of being sued. And that's just me talking out the side of my neck, but I will say, on a textual basis, it is no longer called the Heimlich maneuver. It is now called abdominal thrust, which I'm not entirely sure the reason why they wanted their name scraped off of there. But if I had to make a guess, I probably would say liability. Because it was, I mean, it's a recent phenomenon. It's not something old. Maybe it might be the 1900s. I'll look it up. It might be 1800s, which I always get that mixed up too. You're always if you're in the 18th, because like we see how we're going back to AD and BCE. If you're in the 1800s, you're in the 19th century. If you're in the 19th century, you're in the 20th century, and so we're in the 20th century. So we're in the 21st century. 21st century. Wow, put that in perspective. 21st century. And what have we done for the 21st century? I haven't heard this song in a while. Rock her hips. Them franchise boys. Yup, in my white tee. And then they had to go and make every doggone color of the rainbow. I'm like, okay, I ain't got time for this. I ain't got time for this. I got white tee and I got a pink tee. Which, shh, I'm gonna ruin the surprise. I'm like, man, why are you whispering so loud? You know, I ain't loud whispering. I'm talking. Shh, what? I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. Shoot. That's why you be finding those people who be coming to the party an hour late. You be like, wait, why'd you come an hour late? And it's like, I didn't come an hour late. I got invited an hour late. Because I would have ruined the whole surprise. I'm telling you right now. I would have ruined the whole surprise. Not on purpose. Which still brings me back to that question. I asked that question long ago. Not long ago, but I asked that question out to the general public, right? And I say this as someone who just, like I said, no one's a stranger. I'll talk to you to find out how you feel about this world. Because let me tell you, if you don't have a feeling about this world, you don't have a feeling about this world. Let me tell you. Anyway, let me tell you about this story of just asking about is surprise a good word or a bad word? Is it a word that elicits a positive connotation or a negative connotation? Or is it a neutral connotation of a word? Nothing irks me more than the whole question of it depends, right? I'm not about, like I said, going back to just having a better line of thinking, right? You can't think of a world of black and white, but there comes a point, right, that in the decision making, right, of a yes or no question, of a right and left answer, of a red and blue faction, right, you have to there does come a point that you have to decide, right, delineate your attention or delineate the direction to that direction. So when it comes to connotation, right? That's going back to that same rant and rave of the tragic nature of English, right? Of having 1,000 things mean the same thing, or someone saying the wrong thing at the wrong time in the wrong place. What was once supposed to be music has now turned to noise. You know, and then now you have everybody working on what it means. Are they in step? Are they a band? Are they a crew? I don't know. I don't know. And you won't be able to know until they actually start stepping in line. And guess what? If they're not quacking and walking and talking like the duck in a row, you know what ducks look like. The season's here. You don't know what ducks look like. I'm telling you right now. Invite yourself. Invite yourself into Mother Nature. Invite yourself outside to see that the world The world is moving. It's a windy day today too. Which kind of reminds me, I need to get back on to the realms and needs of the doggone kite club. Doggone Kite Club is an initiative I want to start because I like flying a kite. Me and my mom, it was just one of those days, right? We've always seen people fly kites on cartoons or fly kites in the movies or fly kites in books. Like kite flying was always something that was what they did, right? Not realizing it was something that we could do too. It was probably maybe 3 Mays ago. Now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, 3 Mays ago, me and my mom, we went and flew a kite at the park. And when I say randomly, it wasn't necessarily like randomly flying a kite, but it's kind of like, hey, it's windy, and we've done what we need to do for the day. You know what I mean? Like we've gotten our chores done. We've gotten our inside work done. We've gotten our errands done, or we've gotten our outside work done. Um, like now, what is it? Now, what is it? What is it we do? Right? What is it we do? As we pray, what is it we do? And what we did is we ended up going to fly a kite, and it was really fun. Like I said, trying to when it comes to trying to get yourself to do something for yourself, oh man, talk about ease but difficulty. But when it comes to trying to do something with other people, especially one other person, not just a group of people, but one other person, let me tell you, challenge accepted, right? Because that challenge was accepted that day. Like there's probably only one other time where I'm like, oh my gosh, I will never do this again. But you still find yourself doing it, right? Um, and like I said, that one was flying a kite and asking mom to help me on my math homework. Oh my lord! As a seventh grader, and look, and I say seventh grade, I remember distinctly in my head. I remember distinctly. I will never, I will never ask my mom to help me with my math homework ever again because that was just the most. that was the most strenuous way to like see yourself, right? See yourself and hear yourself as yourself, but in another person. And I say that because it happened for both of us. You know what I mean? And I think that's one of the best things when it comes to parents and kids, especially now as an adult. Looking at my parents and kind of realizing, oh snap, you know what I mean? Like that's what we're working off of. You know what I mean? And I'm saying that as a blessing. I'm also saying this, like I said, I look in the mirror to be like, oh Lord, if that's the way this works, here we go. You know what I mean? Like that's the beauty and faith that comes with family. But yeah, no, asking and now we're starting to build up a sweat. We're sitting at 78 degrees with 33% humidity. We're feeling good. It's real good. It's not too bad of a day. But this doggone kite club though. But yeah, but being able to get math homework done and fly a kite with mom are definitely those things up there that I feel are just some of the greatest accomplishments one could have, knowing that you're the pot looking at the kettle, and you both got it honestly. Trying to think, man, yeah, I distinctly remember. I was like, I'll never ask. That is the day. That is the day that I learned that the school has a tutoring center. Because trying to have your parents teach you math and they are not math professors, not to say they didn't know the math. You know what I mean? She knew the math. She knew the math. It wasn't she knew it. Just trying to help me with my homework and get it done. And that's just Lord, Lord. Johnny had 43 lemons and tragic and tragic threw half of them. How many more lemons does Johnny have? I don't know. He's too busy beating up Tragic for throwing out half his lemons. We're almost there. Woo! Okay. Math homework with mom. Lord, you want look? See, that's what I'm saying. Everyone got a disastrous hamster story. I'm almost positive everyone's got a parent homework story too, because it's something that's just out there. Like I'm trying to think, do people even have homework anymore? I didn't even realize that more people didn't even go to school now. Like people don't even go to school nowadays. You know what I mean? Like they do, but they don't. Like I was like, wait, what? Like they don't even count you for truancy anymore. I said, wait a minute. Then go back and do some retro grading, and get thumb truancies off my record. What you talk about? Like seriously? Like y'all don't even cut up for truancy no more. But I get it though, and I'm saying that as far as the the localness of it. Oh man, got my new timer back there helping me out, so it'll be all good. Ugh. By the way, I found this really I found this content creator by the name of Aunt Beverly or Aunt Bev, and I'm definitely going to be following her just for the sake of this new, like I said, this new chapter of getting into a literary sense of mind or literary muscle. Right, you got to get into literary muscles before you do a whole bunch of writing and speaking and writing, speaking, and publishing. But she has a very good um, content trend of giving me words that further one's vocabulary. So I would definitely say go look her up, and if you haven't already, start following her. Like I said, Aunt Bev, she taught me the other day. Ultra, ultra crepidarian, ultra crepidarian. Yeah, ultra crepidarian, which is basically someone who considers themselves a SME or acts like they're a SME, but they don't actually know anything. You know what I mean? They're a blowhard. It's just another way of saying blowhard. But yeah, ultra crepidarian. ULTRACREPIDARIAN. Ultra crepidarian. That one right there. That one right there. And her example was because she's I'm guessing, and I'm like I said, and I say guessing because when you look at social media and you go about social media and you see social media, be very careful because remember its first job is to be social, right? And has to be enticing to you, right? Going back to Juicy J being that Pied Piper, man. Its first thing is to be enticing to you. So a social media network has one job, and that is to lure you in for your natural senses to socialize, okay? And the second one is media or medium, right? The difference or the thing in between the two. So I take I take her background for what it means, right? She's in the hospital receiving treatment. Not don't know anything about her diagnosis or anything about her story, but the example that she used was doctors doctors who are ultra crepidarian ultra crepidarians, yeah, ultra crepidarians, and that they acting like they know better than the person who's in the body, right? Which makes sense though for some regards because it's like, well, why'd you come to the doctor then? Like if you know better than me, well, why'd you come here? And of course, for the top five reasons of it, one of them is seeking, right? But the other one is to still be taught. Doctor means teacher. If your doctor's not teaching you something new about yourself, new about your body, new about your system, new about your line of thought, if that doctor is not teaching you something, find another doctor. I am so sorry to get angry about that because it's irksome. It's irksome for people to think that they let these bad doctors continue to they allow these bad doctors to continue to stay in a network because no one says anything because they don't they let the doctor just treat them any old kind of way. And I'm like, now listen, this doctor is a person. This doctor is not God. This doctor, they're a doctor, they're a teacher. And again, if that doctor is not teaching you something to better yourself as yourself, then you need to find another doctor. Period. Period. And it's always okay to get a second opinion. There is nothing. You know what I mean? Like no one is keeping you on stirrups, saying you can't get a second opinion. Unlike mechanics, right? A mechanic tell you something else. They tell you when the truck is up there. They don't tell you when the truck is down in one piece that you can roll away another day, right? Which I'd pay for that. Like that's what diagnosis is, right? Like if I had to put this truck, if I came and got your diagnosis and put your truck back together, you're paying for a dyna. You're paying for a diagnosis because I found the problem and I put the truck back together the way I found it, right? And I don't certify you to drive it. Nah, a lot of these guys they'll tell you the problem with your truck still up there and then charge you a quarter of the price to bring it down. I'm like, what in the world? You know what I mean? Like, just put it back and charge me the diagnosis. I'll pay the 120 for the diagnosis and for me to be able to get my second opinion. But nope, that's just not the way things work nowadays. Not nowadays. Have they ever worked that day? You know what I mean? Like I'm saying, it's one of those things of what you think is supposed to work nowadays. Has it ever worked? right? Because if it ever worked, why did if it ever worked, why did it stop working? If it ever worked, right? And sometimes people don't know stuff doesn't work because they never tried. So that's just part of it. We're almost there. Hang in there. We're almost there. Yeah, but Aunt Bev, she like I said, she does increase of vocabulary, and I think that she's a great resource to just add in a little vocabulary to your day. Add in something that adds to you, right? Like I said, it's not always an academic nature. If for all means, if your goal is to make sure you get them 3 pull-ups, then by all means do that every day. That makes you a better you. That's what you see in yourself. I see a truck. Hold on, I got to see the state that it's from. Huh? I think it said Indiana. Had a lightning bug on it or a firefly. Lightning bug, firefly. I don't know if there's another word for it, but I'm sure there is. Right? Lightning critter. But yeah, if you find another doctor. By the way, I did find out that Mother's Day is the 12th of May this year. So not this Sunday, but next Sunday. And if my memory is serving me correctly, this year Father's Day is on the 16th of June. So I don't know about y'all, but I have made a personal policy as of what was it? Maybe like 5 years ago. 5 years ago, you know how you grow up as a kid and you have mommy, right? And then your parents, or the depending on what holiday it is, um depending on what holiday it is, right? Mother's Day, you have dad help you coordinate mother's gift, and if it's Father's Day, you have mom coordinate father's gift, whatever, right? The opposite parent's gift. Um, there's always a song I play when I came back when I come back home. Not like all the time. Every time I come back home to Vegas, wipe me down, wipe me down. I'm home, wipe me down. Anyway, it's like I said, it's the music playing in the background. Wipe me down because I'm home. Um, gas tank on E, but all drinks on me. Make it make sense. It doesn't. Um, just fun to say though. Anyway, so you have your parent, right? You have your opposite parent, and that's what the opposite parent, and I say opposite parent or the counter parent. I don't even know what you would call them, right? The other parent. That's what your parent, right? That's what the parent or the other one, right? Between the two of them, because there's two of them. It took two. It took two. So between these two, right? When you coordinate between the one or the other, right? You're usually doing something, or you buy something, or you sign something. Um, you know what I mean? Like when you're aware, like today is Mother's Day, or today is Father's Day, or today is yada yada day, right? Which I'm sure there probably is a yada yada day. I'll find yada yada day where you just yada yada all day. I'm sure there's a yada yada day. I'm sure there is. I can't see us getting to this year of the Lord and not have a yada yada day. And if we don't have a yada yada day, we're fixing to have a yada yada day. Yeah, yada 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 yada. Okay, so as I'm finishing up that thought, right, of yada yada, um, then you get to that point, right, like where the macaroni art and the you get to the point where the macaroni art just doesn't fly anymore, right? Mom starts wanting some other things. Like I remember I got my mom, or look, not we. I said it because there's 4 of us. Um, because listen, because then there's a split, right? Because then you go from group sibling projects of macaroni art, right? When you start, and then you get to the point where you're making individual art, right? Artworks, because there's 4 of us, and so everyone's making their own individual things because that's what you did in school or whatever, right? Because now other parents off the hook for coordinating that, and then you get to the point where you actually get mom something, right? And so then we all as a group, right, we all got mom something as a group. You pull in money, or you pull in monies, and you get mom a tall standing can opener. I think she still has that can opener, by the way, and that was years ago. So let me tell you right now, if you think your parents don't have that macaroni art, they still do. They still do, and it may not be out in the open, and it may not be clear as day, but those little trinkets and things, they still got them. But let me tell you, they start eliminating themselves, as time goes on because they start getting replaced by other arts, right? And so from a tall standing can opener from the four of us, right, to other gifts as individuals, as adults. I started to make this long story get to the short of it is now we've gone full circle into thinking that nope, mom and dad are only getting handmade stuff. Period. Like there's like unless I can go out, right? Unless I can go out and I can't even think of anything, right? Like unless I went out and say, here, mom, here's a Hummer, right? Like went out and bought a whole, Winnebago, or went out like, and I'm just I don't. She wouldn't even want those things. That's the thing. Like I'm just saying as far as dropping out the sky, right? Like if I went and got her, a Fort Apache helicopter, and I say Fort Apache because I think it's Apache, right? Not a Fort Apache. Fort Apache's a road out here, but I'm just saying, what is it like? What could she possibly want at this rate? I'm saying, at the rate that we live in now and the rate we do now, what more could possibly be wanted? And that's a hypothetical question in its own sense. I'm just saying that we're now doing all handmade stuff. So if you're doing handmade stuff, or you're scheduling something, or you're trying to figure it out, you got into the 12th. Okay, you have a week. You got a week to start now. And I'm saying that to even myself, right? Because like I said, when I go back and review this 4 days from now, I'll be like, wait, a week, and then it'll be 3 days, and then I end up buying a box of chocolate anyway. So sorry, mom. Surprise ruined. You're getting turtles. You're getting turtles. You know what I mean? Because I haven't even thought about it. Like I said, it snuck up on me this year. But yeah, everyone's getting some handmade stuff. I remember I have one artisan. They got so great with their craft, right? They got so great with their craft that their families don't even want don't even want the these awesome gifts, right? They don't even want these awesome gifts because they get them all the time. Like it's almost like the same regard as the the blacksmith's son, right? What more does a blacksmith need with nails, right? That's all. And so the story behind that, or the thinking behind that is, when you're the blacksmith's son, the first thing you learn on is the first thing you learn on is or the first thing you learn to make is are nails, right? Because nails are small, they're easy, they're simple, they're spiked, and they're used for making, or they're used for putting up the house or shacks or things like that. So you can still be helpful, right? You can, when it comes to Sanford and Son can still be helpful to Sanford. So, but anyway, but yeah, May 12th this year. Wow. But you know what? Who knows? Maybe I might draw mom a nice card this year, because I didn't even look it up as far as Crayola. So if you had to pin, right, if you had to pin how Crayola grew in products, right, as far as because remember I was telling you I won a art contest in second grade. I know, just little tidbits and things about Tragic that you're like, oh yeah, I remember that. But Crayola though, right? I went to go look up Crayola yesterday because I was like, is Crayola private or are they public? What's up with Crayola? And they're a subsidiary, right? They fall under the same realm as the Unspeakable Underwear Company, which that's because that's a full skit. I won't get into it on YouTube. That's a full standing skit. But yeah, the unmentionables, the unmentionables. That sounds like that sounds like a whole product brand line in itself for them. That just makes me so mad when it comes to like realizing like, what were you doing with your life, kid? But anyway, Crayola, how they started, which what, you would think that would be obvious to think that, like whiteboards didn't just start. Like now I'm trying to think, I don't think smart boards in the classroom, I don't think smart boards ever really did take off, only because they require such a intense IT, you know what I mean? Like information technology, that they require such an immense support system that they just never took off. But chalk is where Crayola started, right? Crayola LLC. Well, these two guys, I remember seeing two guys on the picture. I don't remember their names though. I did not write them down. But chalk, crowns, colored pencils, markers, paints, and molding clay are the that those are the focal points of Crayola right now, right? Which kind of makes me step back and kind of go like, well, they work in a world of chromatics. You know what I mean? Like they work in a world of color. I'm very curious as to why. I'm sure, you know what, now that I'm thinking about it though, and it says paints, I am almost positive that they probably have a whole they probably have a paint line, and the paint line is probably not called Crayola though, because if someone's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get Crayola to paint your house, I think someone would probably go like, mm. I need you to head over to that Sherwin Williams over there. Okay. Yep. Go ahead and head over there and go get some real paint, or go head over and get some Bear paint or whatever. Which does remind me though, today is the day I probably do need to get in touch with a painter, because we have some walls that we got to put up, and once those walls get put up, I need that art to be on point. Trying to get to you. E40 now, as far as music go. Man, we probably have about. We're gonna tough it out, okay? Tough it out with me. We probably have 45 lemons left. 45 lemons left. So let's see if we can get this done. In the meantime, remember I told you not to tease the truth? Remember that? Remember I was talking about that dog? You know how you had Henry the chicken hawk and Foghorn Leghorn, the big rooster. The dog's name is Barnyard Dog. Like that's literally the dog's name. Is Barnyard Dog. So Barney, you know what I mean? And it's like, oh hey Barney. And Barney, what's your real name? Barney. Wait, your name is Barney? Yes. Like Barney Fred? Yes. I'm trying to think. That's the one series I could never get into, but that's probably one I probably should check out of How I Met Your Mother. I know people talk about that TV show like it goes off the rails too, to the point that it got a short reboot too. This Zest game is not working right now. I'm getting all these flat spots. I'm probably not rolling it enough. Let's just get the Zest. Let's get the best and let's get out of here. That's probably one reason why. I mean, I don't think it's just technology. I don't think technology is the only reason why banks don't get robbed anymore. I don't think you can even find people who can work together long enough, right? Like, can you really find four people to work long enough to complete a a task of that nature or something that's complete? You know what I mean? In comparison, that's like I said, that's the only thing that's really different about any group of people or any situation, right? It's a matter of organization. Everybody being different but organized. You don't have to be together to be organized. But who am I, right? Who tis I but a tragic example as to what happens when you drink the worm. Or some other words that came about. So another thing that came out was for that random, right, random topic generator. Like I said, nothing random about it, but fission nuclear. Even though fission reminds me of fusion, and there's this one group, and I'll always talk about this one group. I'll probably post it up again, but I was just so happy to find it because one thing I have been doing, the one part of spring cleaning I never got to, like I said, I keep skipping over and over because they keep connecting. So just follow the squirrel as he runs, right? But one thing that I did not end up completing, and I'll complete it in May, or I'll complete it as I complete it because it's important, but it's not mission critical. But the other thing you want to do in your spring cleaning is also digital spring cleaning, like I said or I advised the other day. And I say advised because it is something that I don't think people are aware of. Again, how influential social media can be to their well-being, and how influential social media can be to their pattern of thought. Um, Clear out clean up those old files, clean up those old documents, clean up documents you're not going to use anymore, clean up pictures and videos that are just taking up space, clean up all that, clean up your digital spaces. Because if you start cleaning up your digital spaces, right, you'll start having different outcomes of your algorithm. Because a lot of it, right, a lot of it's based on what you're storing. And I don't mean, and like I said, and I don't mean just on a computer front. I'm also speaking on a level of your personal being, right? Start clearing out some of those memories. Start clearing out some of those those collections and mementos, right? I had told myself the other day in a very grand gestured way to say, like, stop collecting mementos, right? And start going for the monuments. Like, we don't have to collect mementos when we're in the middle of building monuments. What is a memento to a monument? Not a dang thing, right? Like, not a thing. So start clearing out your digital spaces, and recognize, again, like I said, that the algorithm is working off of what it knows. And if you continue to not learn anything, if you continue not to know anything new, you're going to be stuck in this old way. And the old way may be fine. However, if you find yourself stagnating in a way that creates harm and pain to your current existence, because the world's going to change. You know what I mean? Like you can stay wherever you want, but that pendulum, as much as it swings, it's gonna knock over the dominoes that surround you. So by all means, run off to the middle of nowhere and think time will stop. It will not. It stops for nobody, and it makes everybody its plaything. To say it politely, right? Just like gravity will make you its plaything if you play with it. So that's why you have to have the sense, right? The sense. That's the one thing I don't want to do as I'm shifting gears here. I don't want to get so wanting to be done, right? I don't want to rush this process and miss, like right here. That's not done being zested, right? Like, that's still a whole bunch of zest. Like, that's zested, but that's not a whole bunch of zest. But if I just threw it out already, I'm missing out on the service it can provide. Oh, now we them boys playing in the background. I am curious though. I'm curious as to see. Like I said, I kind of had, that's the one piece of feed that I had to turn off, not because I disagree with them or anything about them. It's just it can be overwhelming. Ouch! It can be overwhelming. Because NFL has some of the best marketeers, right? Some of the best marketeers in the game, and I'm saying that as far as the game of getting people together. That social part. Remember, I told you, getting people together and getting people informed and getting people aware and getting people involved. All, like, ball clubs, and in particularly the NFL have it down to a science that that just kind of puts me in a little bit of awe sometimes, that they were able to accomplish that. But that's what happens, right? That's what happens when you have everybody in an organized fashion. But it can be overwhelming in my timelines. It can be or it can be overwhelming in my feedback. It can be overwhelming in my chatter, right? So when things become overwhelming, it's okay to step back. And again, I think those are the things that when people come into their new season, when people come with their new lemons, when people come with their new attitudes, those are things that come into a matter of acceptance, right? Like, if you're not familiar with the 5 stages of dying, the 5 stages of dying, I feel like we go through on a daily basis. We just don't really particularly, what's the word I'm looking for? We don't particularly, not necessarily, we don't observe it, but we don't recognize it for what it is each and every day. And first things first is denial, right? I can't believe this is happening. And to me, going back into denial, right? Is denial a positive word or a negative word? And I just think it's a neutral one, right? Because I'm not going to deny the truth. I will deny a lie all day, every day. Like, it's a lie. It is meant to be denied, right? Denied. But from denial, right? When you come into this step of the day, from denial, um, and the thing about this, the 5 stages of dying, by Kubler Ross, is they don't have to go in order, right? They don't have to go in order, but what they are just stages, and how you go about it. But I do believe that acceptance has to be the last one, and it only makes sense for acceptance to be the last one because that's the nature of death, right? That's the nature of an ending. That's the nature of a cease. So from denial, right? From denial, you start maybe going into a short level of depression, because now that you've been given this news, right, of a death, and depending on what the news is or is not, but it's about changing, right? It's like what was will never be ever again, and that's sometimes that can be saddening.
It can be very saddening, and depending on how it comes about, whether it be in a surprising way or in a detrimental way, you fall into a depression, right? And from that depression, you might find yourself um, too far gone until you get this springboard back into anger, right? Because now, there comes a point where sad doesn't give you the same makeup and chemical to keep going on and on, because it still hasn't happened yet, right? Like, you don't have time. Like the grieving process is just so strenuous, right? That it almost makes you angry, right? It makes you angry. And I'm saying that as far as grieving, because no one can really understand your grieving like you. Your grieving is your grieving. It's on your time. It's in your space. It's between you and God, right? And it's very hard. It's very hard to try to get that understood across anybody else, let alone yourself, right? Grieving with yourself is its own thing, right? So when you have this level of grief, and no one understanding the grief, and everyone telling you to get over it, right? From this sadness, you start going into an anger because no one's understanding, right? You're caught in this realm of unknown. You're caught in this realm of, well, whatever, right? You just kind of flip over the table and go from there. And then with anger, right? Sadness has its consequences, and the sadness or the consequences of sadness, I would say, are usually very internalized, which is what makes it so dangerous when it comes to being able to check up on your friends or check up on your loved ones, right? As to where they are in their life and their journey. If anything, that's something I did get from doing all this makeup TV watching, right? Is the level of ask, right? And I got it from MTV. Go figure. There is still music on MTV. Don't let them tell you otherwise. But the one initiative that I really appreciate from MTV, that they touted pretty strongly, was something called Ask, right? And in the realm of Ask, in the realm of the social world, Ask is as follows, right? Ask means to acknowledge, support, and keep in touch, right? Because it's not the same. We live in a different world. We live in a different world where when it comes to what support looks like, or what being a figure of help looks like, is different for everybody. So that's why we have to acknowledge a pain, right? Support the healing plan or support the healing process, and then just keep in touch with the progress of that. And that's not only for their own healing, that's for your own self healing. Like, that's for yourself. Ask yourself, acknowledge your pain, right? Support a decent healing plan. Now, granted, I'm not saying that everyone's healing plan is going to be the same. If I'm being honest, sometimes my healing plan is a bottle of tequila. Hand me a lemon, right? Hand me a lemon and some salt, and we'll be good to go. But it's being able to support a healthy healing plan, right? So maybe, just maybe, a shot of tequila is in there somewhere. But let's be real, that's not a healthy enough healing plan, right? Going off and blowing all your cash, on the ponies is not a healing plan. Going out and causing a ruckus, right? Getting locked up, being set aside for disturbing the peace is not a supportive healing plan. So when you acknowledge this pain, it's okay to acknowledge a pain, and it's okay to support, again, a healthy healing plan, but be supportive, right? Be supportive of something healthy. And then, like I said, keep in touch with the progress, because nothing's worse than having this feeling of a consequence, right? Like, and you've been forgotten. So, like, going back into these stages of death, right? We've already had this denial, we've already had this depression, and now that no one is understanding and we're alone, or whatever the case may be, in this level of death, we have now reached this level of anger. So while depression has consequences that are internal, right, to the self. And like I said, and that's what I'm saying. Reach out to those people, because it doesn't. You don't know what depression looks like. Depression does not have a face. Depression smiles. Depression cries. Depression yells. I'm saying, depression is a chameleon of sorts, and it's really. When I say fascinating, I don't say fascinating as, and I want everyone to be depressed for it to be, gorillas in the mist. Let's find out why you're sad. No, I'm saying it's something that you can't really pinpoint it. It's they're both lemons, but they're different, right? They're both lemons. They're both depression, but they both are going to be different in their makeup and their squeeze and how much juice they can produce. But while depression is more of internal attack, right, of your feelings, or an internal attack of this news. Anger anger is something that's going to have external consequences, because self anger, or anger on from the inside, right? And that's where the healing plans come to play and the yelling comes into play. But anger has a nature of seeping out, right? Anger is rarely something that we keep inside. Anger that's kept inside just turns into depression, in my personal opinion, and in my personal experience. That's all it is, right? That's all it turns into. And so then you have this this realm of anger, or this realm of force, right? That makes you apply this action, right? Because anger makes you act. Anger has a place. Anger is not a wasted emotion. Anger does have a function, right? Like, anger is meant to make you act, to justify, right? Because you shouldn't. Anger hurts. I don't know if I don't I like, and I'm sure there are people out there that they just get a kick, right? They just get a kick out of seeing people get angry, and it kind of pisses me off, because I've seen people do that, right? It's kind of a bullying tactic in a different way, right? They just make people angry on purpose, because they love seeing that person get angry, right? Like they love seeing they just love seeing that person angry, and it's just that irritates me. And I'm saying this on a personal level, like, it just irritates me when I see that, because it's like, why would you anger that person on purpose? Like, I'm not sure they are aware that anger does hurt. Anger does affect you on a physical level, and anger can get pretty out of control, right? That's why we still have these classes called anger management. That's why we still have um these places, right, where anger is to be exerted safely. And I say safely, because there's only so much you can tear up before you have to tear up yourself, right? Because when you start tearing stuff up, guess what starts happening? You start hurting people. And anger does hurt people. And I'm saying that to say, depression hurts people from an internal side, right? Depression hurts other people from an external side too, right? But anger has a way of hurting others on top of yourself, right? Anger has a way of doing that. So when you are in this angry state, you do go about, right? You like, you're George, and you call on Lizzie and Ralph to go on this rampage, right? And guess what happens? You end up with people who get hurt from your death, right? And I'm saying that as far as like your daily dose of dying. And so what ends up happening is you have to have a coming to Jesus meeting, and have a level of forgiveness ready in mind, right? Because the last stage of this dying process, or the last stage of this, after you have gone through the denial, after you have gone through the depression and the anger, you're going to go through this level of bargaining, right? So we have denial, depression, anger, and bargaining. And bargaining is one last Hail Mary, right? One last prayer, one last call for it not to be the case, right? That this is the truth of the matter. And whether it be the sunrise or the sunset, right? The sunrise is what puts to death the night, and the night is what puts to death the day. But from this, right, you go into a bargaining. Well, if I just had, and I'm just using it for the day, right? Because when you start talking about it on the actual like scale of death or psychology of death, that goes way beyond my pedigree. That goes way beyond my knowledge. Quite frankly, it goes way beyond my interest. But which the reason why I say it like that is because I've had my more than my fair share of pulp on my fingers, more than my fair share of pulp on my fingers. But I had to touch the phone real quick. But I actually know more funeral directors than I do stunt car drivers, and I find that to be a problem. Anywho, um, but yeah, you go into this bargaining, right? You go into bargaining, um, to save the day. You go into bargaining to save this moment. You go into bargaining. Doggone it. Cutting up my hands, man. It looks like we're almost full. Like, this thing is almost like it's fluffy and full. A part of me is like, let's. Yeah, hold on. Yeah, we might. I look. I said 44. I might have been off by 20. But I want this to be as nearly as fresh as possible. But I also know that it's going to take a little while because between trying to clean off, between trying to clean off, I can't. I don't know what this device is called, y'all. I promise I will have a name for it, or I'll have the official name for it at next cut or at next post. But here we go. Got that bento, baby. Get that back in. But yeah, bargaining. Your last bargaining chip. Because what is it? Hold on. Let me clean up this station before I get. Because it's gonna irk me to have all. It's gonna irk me to not have a station that's clean. Ew, look at there. I got more note cards. Yeah, just keep the workstation fairly nice, right? And I'm saying that to say like that's part of it. I'm not saying nothing's, and I'm just it's just a small tangent, right? But everyone has. Okay, I'm speaking out the side of my neck when I say everybody. When you are a part of a organization, right, that has rank and levels and rank, or there's that's so and so's boss, whose boss is boss. There's always levels to it, right? But what I'm trying to say is, if you're what's the best universal way I can say this? Because what people think is your boss is different, right? And it's for everybody, or who your lead is. But like if you're chief, like if the president of your company, how about that? Right? If the president of your company um comes into your station, and your station is just like in disarray. Granted, things are getting done, things are fine, right? Production is moving, people are happy, value is being made. But there comes a point where it's like, okay, well, is there a way that you can like make the station less hazardous? You know what I mean? Like, and not necessarily hazardous, but like, can you keep the station nice? Because when you have a show that is that works, and it's actually and it's clean too, like it kind of makes for a pretty cool thing. But I had these in my pocket, I forgot, and these were the last of those note cards too. The battery's dying anyway, so we might have another soprano end. I'm still trying to find the nice median, right? The nice median as to how long these videos should be. This one's still going out to be 3 hours. I wouldn't have thought. I think it's me doing more yammering than limiting, or more yammering than zesting. Why this is still taking so long, right? But it'll be okay. If I only had 20 more minutes, right? And no, like I said, it's not really the line to it. I'm trying to get back to saying bargaining, right? 5 stages of death: denial, depression, anger, and then you get to bargaining. You ask God for one more day. You ask God for one more moment. You ask the boss man for 5 seconds. You ask, Madame for, 5 more days before you have to pay the rent, right? Please, landlady, is bargaining right before the deadline, and everyone does it, and you know what? And there's nothing wrong with it. I don't feel that to be something that's not necessarily inhuman, right? I feel like if you don't bargain, it's almost a sense of what's the word I'm looking for? Not necessarily helplessness, but it's almost a sense of you gave up, right? Like don't give up. Don't give up. Do not give up. Whatever you do, I'm telling you, I'm here right now telling you, do not give up. Okay? Do not give up. Take on another day. Do not give up. Because then you get to this level. You get to this level of acceptance, right? You get to this level of acceptance that allows you to be at peace with the idea that this cycle is going to start again, and you just got to be ready for it, right? You got to buckle up and recognize, oh, this thing is juicing on it. It started wheezing on me. Started wheezing on the squeezing. But yeah, don't ever give up because you're going to reach this level of acceptance. And eventually, right, eventually, the level of acceptance will be, again, what you accept, where your boundaries are. And if you've already been through the boundaries of denial, you've already been through the boundaries of anger, you've already been through the boundaries of depression, you've already bargained everything you could bargain for, right? We're already at Ollie's, fool. You know what I mean? Like, we are already at Ollie's. We have left Neiman Marcus months ago. We're already at the bargain discount, which is fine. Because you know what you find at the bargain discount? You find dishes at the bargain discount. You find answers at the bargain discount in ways that maybe, just maybe, you can live your next life with less denial. You can live your next life with less anger. You can live your next life with less depression. Maybe you can go straight to acceptance. Like, did you ever figure that? Maybe if you started with acceptance from the start, maybe if you started with acceptance from the start, you would never have to go through the other four. If you would have started from acceptance from the start, you wouldn't be this angry. You wouldn't be this depressed. You wouldn't have to bargain off anything, right? You wouldn't have to deny anything because you've accepted the truth, right? If the truth presented itself, and that's where the kick is coming to. Does the truth present itself? And I'm telling you right now, with the nature of social media, with the nature of what I've seen, with the nature of what I'm picking up, with the nature of what I'm studying. Hold on, I got an ambulance in the background. But with the nature of, like I said, with the nature of what I'm juicing up, no, that is not something that people readily do, right? It's something that we learn along the way. It's something that comes with practice. And like I said, thank y'all for joining me in this practice, right? Practice of learning that, practice of realizing, practice of seeing, and having that feedback, right? That's the biggest thing. If you got a negative feedback loop, you're only going to come out more in negative, right? You just got to change something. And sometimes it's just a matter of taking off your shoe, taking the pebble out, and continue walking. You know what I mean? Like why did you accept that pebble into your life? And I'm saying that as far as your boundaries, right? Like what made that pebble, that burden? And I'm just going, and I'm saying burden, but burden is such a heavy word, right? Burdens are heavy. And I tell you right now, you are not heavy. You are my brother, right? Speaking of Cheers, that's one of the lines from Frasier, not Cheers. That's one of the lines from Frasier that I really love. Frasier was, hold on, there's a ambulance, or no, that's not ambulance. That's a black and white cookie with cherries and berries on top. Um, no, but there was a time that Frasier, right, the older of the two brothers. There's only two brothers, but Frasier was the one who was sick, and he needed to be lifted from the couch into his bed for recovery. And the younger brother, the baby brother, or the younger brother, not baby brother, because I think they're only like 3 years apart. But the younger brother says, "You are not heavy. You are my brother," and it's the truth of the matter. You are not heavy, right? You are loved. You are cared for. You're admired. You're looked up to. And I'm talking to you, not me. Not me, right? Tragic is not talking to Tragic. I'm not talking to the mirror. I'm talking to you because I do know that I have a small audience out there. And like I said, I really do appreciate you guys being here and watching me zest out the best of what I got to come and offer, right? Because the seasons are here. The seasons are changing. And now that I've gone through my series, right? I've gone through my series of tragic death, right? I've gone through the level of death that allows me to realize, like, oh snap, if you just take that in reverse, right? If you just take it in reverse, then that's where life starts. And so I've just come into a level of acceptance and recognition, right? Right? You got to mix it in. You got to mix it in. If the sugar is your anger, if the denial is this zest, right? If the bargaining is a measurement of it all, and the depression be the water that flows from my eyes, not really, right? Not really. But I will say, don't let anyone else tell you that crying is not a functional or that crying is not a useful bodily function. It actually very much is. Like, I love those ones. I love those people who go on about feelings and this, that, and the other, and they're like, well, I never seen them cry. I'm like, well, that might not be too good for their brain. Just to be real with you, you know what I mean? Like, if you're unable to cry, that's actually probably more of an indication of a lack of or a chemical imbalance in one's head. And I'm not saying in one's head like mixing with the brains of such. But those are the devices, right? Those are the devices that kind of allow you to see